Chapter 142. There was a gargantuan tree over 10,000 meters tall in the Nanling County of the Baihua State, with a canopy of several kilometers wide. Above the canopy, there were countless buildings and pavilions, creating the image of an immortal. This was actually the home of the renowned Vermilion Bird sect. Wow, this tree is so big. And Lin exclaimed in admiration at the sight of this gargantuan tree. They had already begun to fly towards the canopy of the tree that covered the sky. Countless luxurious and magnificent pavilions were situated on the canopy, bathing in the brilliant sunlight and glistening. Oomph! These buildings are so annoying. They're blocking Grandpa Tree's photosynthesis. Xiao Hong poked its head out of Lin's pocket with displeasure. Plants really didn't think the same way as them. And Lin looked at the gargantuan tree to find that it was still full of vitality and lush foliage. The Vermilion Bird sect had been playing on top of this tree for tens of thousands of years. No, it had been playing with fire for tens of thousands of years, and there was nothing unhealthy about Grandpa Tree. He shook his head and didn't dwell on this matter any longer. He continued to fly upward onto Bai's back. Two vermilion pillars stood between the trees, with the image of a flaming phoenix in the middle. "Stop! What are you guys doing here?" A guard in a red Taoist robe stopped Lin and the others. And Lin was just about to speak when he saw Bai come out with a badge in his mouth. The guard's expression shifted upon seeing the badge, and he immediately half-knelt to the ground and cupped his fists. "Welcome, Master." Bai nodded indifferently and swaggered in with Lin on his back. "Holy F***CK. Bai, when did you become a master of the Vermilion Bird sect?" And Lin stroked Bai's head in astonishment. Bai smiled triumphantly. "I came to the Vermilion Bird sect with my dad when I was young, and Elder Zhu gave us badges like this one. He said that we could enter and leave the sect freely with this badge. I didn't think I'd be able to use it here." And Lin came to a realization. The mythological bee sect and the Vermilion Bird sect were both part of the Kingdom of the Nine States, so it was normal for them to have dealings with one another. Immediately afterward, they began to wander around the Vermilion Bird sect. "Big brother, and have you noticed? We're getting a lot of attention on the streets." Bai was feeling a little smug. "Do you think it's because I'm too handsome or because you're too eye-catching?" And Lin stroked his chin and pondered. "I think it's both." Bai raised his proud head, and a sly smile appeared on his face at the Vermilion Bird sect disciples. At this moment, another two male disciples of the Vermilion Bird sect passed by. When they saw Bai's devilish smile, the corners of their mouths twitched, and they quickly walked away. Then, one of the males from the Vermilion Bird sect asked in a low voice, "Where did that man come from? He's sitting on a strange dog. What a joke." Another man shook his head and tried to hold back his laughter. "Do you think this is funny? You didn't notice the little monkey on his shoulder. That monkey is the funny one. In the forbidden area of the sect, on the Yonggod Arena, a woman dressed in a light green dress was meditating with her eyes closed. She extended a slender finger and lightly tapped the hovering fire spirit bead. An extremely pure flame power flowed into her body through her fingertip, fusing with it and transforming it. "Haha, Xiaolan, I just saw a weirdo on the street." "Wait, no, it's two weirdos." A crisp and pleasant voice suddenly sounded in the forbidden area. A beautiful woman in a purple dress ran over briskly. The woman meditating in the forbidden area was none other than Su Xiaolan. She opened her eyes and smiled lightly. "Sister Lan Yin, mind your image. If you keep yelling and screaming in the forbidden area, you'll alert that elder. You'll have to go into seclusion again." Lan Yin blushed upon hearing this, but she still asked excitedly, "Guess what I just saw?" Su Xiaolan snapped. "You've seen two weirdos." Yes. Those two weirdos are too funny. Haha." Lan Yin put one hand on her waist and the other on her stomach as she laughed uncontrollably. Su Xiaolan rolled her eyes. This senior sister had a strong point that seemed like a flaw, and that was that her sense of humor was too low. In the past, she could laugh for half a day when she saw a turtle lying on its back and unable to turn over. Thus, Su Xiaolan was not very interested in the weirdos that Lan Yin mentioned. It was nothing more than some disciple tripping on the ground, or someone using a flame refinement technique to roast themselves. There was nothing funny about it. Lan Yin patted Su Xiaolan's shoulder, and her laughter subsided for a while. "There's a man riding on a white dog," she said excitedly. "He's taking a stroll around our sect on a white dog. You didn't see their appearances, but they look very impressive. This is the first time I've seen someone riding a dog, huh?" Su Xiaolan curled her lips. "If one day you see someone riding a pig in a parade, you'll probably die of laughter." Really, really laughter. However, for some reason, the words riding a dog echoed in her mind, and her heart stirred. A curious expression appeared on Su Xiaolan's face. "Sister Lan Yin, what do you think those two weirdos look like?" The guy is quite handsome, and the dog has very white fur and is very cute." "Oh, right. There's also an ugly monkey on his shoulder, which is also very funny." As if recalling a certain scene, he once again poked this senior sister's funny spot and began to laugh unrestrainedly. A white-furred dog and an ugly monkey? It was most likely that he had come. Su Xiaolan was a little excited, and she grabbed onto Lan Yan's hand. "Let's go. Take me to see them." Lan Yan was slightly taken aback. Sister Lan, I thought you weren't interested in this kind of thing. Why are you so enthusiastic today?" "But that's fine. I wanted to go back and take a look anyway. Let's go." There was a huge red crystal wall in the Vermilion Bird Sect's training ground. Enlin sat on Dabai's back and slowly made his way into the practice arena. "Phew, it's so hot here. Isn't there air conditioning?" Enlin felt waves of heat wash over him as soon as he entered the training ground. Flame explosion technique. A male disciple yelled as he hurled a huge fireball toward the red wall. Boom! Flames exploded, and a yellow number of 366 and a red number of 210 appeared on the wall. Wow! It even has a counting function. And Lin was astonished. After that, they asked the disciple in the training ground, and they learned that the yellow number represented the power of the spell technique, while the red number represented the purity of the flame spell technique. Many disciples of the Vermilion Bird Sect were practicing their immortal spells here, and they unleashed one fire-type immortal spell technique after another, causing a series of explosions to ring out. Flames spread everywhere, and many places became extremely hot. However, the more these disciples practiced, the more motivated they became. In particular, when some disciples saw the red number increase, such as from 215 to 216, they would jump with joy. The Vermilion Bird Sect has really put a lot of thought into this. This can indeed motivate the disciples to practice immortal spells. And Lin nodded as he walked toward the red crystal wall with interest. Flame Fist. And Lin yelled as he unleashed a fire-type immortal spell that he had learned in the Celestial Court. Boom! The crystal wall trembled, and the numbers began to appear. 611 in yellow, 190 in red. And Lin sighed lightly. The power of his fist was almost twice as powerful as that of the disciple who had unleashed the flame explosion technique, but the purity of the flame spell was much lower. At this moment, the clown suddenly transformed back to his original form. "Let me try as well." Saying this, a black flame appeared in his right hand. This flame didn't appear to be very hot, but it was imbued with an aura of annihilation. Whoosh! The clown threw the black flame at the red crystal wall. Another violent boom sounded, and the entire red crystal wall began to tremble as a faint red light emanated from it. The numbers began to appear: 850 in yellow, 803 in red. Holy F***, it's so high. Enlin's eyes widened. In contrast to Enlin's shock, most of the disciples in the practice arena were dumbfounded by the numbers. These disciples were all using immortal spells against the red crystal wall. When the red crystal wall emitted a red light, they naturally noticed it immediately. Almost everyone stopped what they were doing, and their faces were filled with incredulity. A male was still holding a fireball in his hand, and he didn't even realize that the fire had reached his eyebrows. He stared blankly at the numbers on the wall. They understood even better what this value meant. The purity of the flame has reached over 90%. This must be the level of a divine flame. A male disciple murmured. "Which freak from our sect is it?" "No, Could it be that the sect leader came here to play? A disciple looked left and right, trying to figure out who had unleashed that immortal spell. A female disciple patted the disciple's shoulder and pointed in Lin's direction. None of them. I've been secretly keeping an eye on them ever since they came in. The one who unleashed that attack just now was that monkey. As the news spread, the practice arena was in an uproar. Many disciples turned to look at the clown, and their pupils constricted as they gasped in shock. The ugly monkey was so terrifying. Chapter 143. Lan Yin and Su Xiaolan walked through the sect together. Two beauties walking together always attracted the attention of many sect disciples, not to mention that they were the most outstanding young prodigies of the Vermilion Bird sect. The two of them were already used to these scorching gazes and didn't pay them much heed. Look, this is where I saw them before. Lan Yin pointed at the small plaza before them with a smile. They looked like they were on a spring outing. It was so funny. Su Xiaolan nodded. What happened after that? Which direction did they go? Lan Yin faltered slightly before replying sheepishly. I didn't pay attention at the time. I was too busy laughing. Then why did you bring me here? Su Xiaolan felt a headache coming on. So this senior sister had brought her here to carve a boat for a sword? Right at this moment, a man hurriedly flew past on his sword. Hey, Brother Mo, hi. Where are you going in such a hurry? Lan Yin yelled excitedly at the sight of the man. Mo Hai was the #1 prodigy of the younger generation of the Vermilion Bird sect. Regardless of whether it was his bloodline power or his overall combat prowess, he was far superior to his peers. Even Su Xiaolan, with her exceptional aptitude, was no match for him. Mo Hai paused in midair upon hearing this, and there was a hint of excitement in his crimson eyes. So it's Sister Lan Yin and Sister Su Xiaolan. Something big has happened at the Trial of Flames, and I have to go check it out. What is it? Su Xiaolan was a little uneasy. For some reason, she was reminded of that person who would never rest no matter where he went. I heard that there's a monkey at the flame trial grounds. Its flame purity is over 90%. I have to go and see what it is. I'll be taking my leave then. Mo Hai flew away on his sword as he spoke, unwilling to waste even a second. Su Xiaolan and Lan Yin were both a little dumbstruck upon hearing this. My God, its flame purity is over 90%? I remember that you and Mo Hai are both over 80%, right? Where did this monkey come from? How could it be so powerful? Lan Yin stammered. Su Xiaolan was still in a daze. Could it be the clown? That wasn't right. Didn't the clown use a silver rod? When did fire-type immortal spells become so powerful? She knew that now was not the time to worry about such things, so she immediately flew up on her sword. Senior sister, let's go to the cultivation field to have a look. Lan Yin nodded when she heard this. She controlled the fire feather fan and followed behind Su Xiaolan to the training grounds. At this moment, the Vermilion Bird sect's flame cultivation field had descended into chaos. All of the disciples of the Vermilion Bird sect felt as if they had just taken a roller coaster ride. At first, they were shocked. When they saw the clown's appearance, they were frightened, and then they were shocked again. Slowly, it evolved into today's fanaticism. The disciples completely surrounded Lin and the others, and it was practically impenetrable. Brother Monkey, who is your master? What? Are you from the Myriad Mountain Domain? Then where did you learn your flame magic from? Can you tell your little sister? What? Monkey bro, you're this little brother's pet beast. Huh? You're Lin from a celestial court? Everyone asked all kinds of questions at once, and Lin felt like his ears were about to explode. However, the clown seemed to be enjoying himself, and he flashed an ugly smile the entire time. This was the first time he had been so popular. At this moment, a crimson streak of light flew into the cultivation field. A disciple yelled in surprise, Brother Mo Hai is here. All of the disciples parted to let him pass. Mo Hai was the most powerful cultivator among the younger generation of the Vermilion Bird sect. Both his strength and potential were extremely terrifying. They didn't dare to block Brother Mo Hai's way. Instead, they all looked at him with awe and veneration. And Lin saw an ordinary-looking man with crimson eyes walking toward them. His entire body was emitting a vast and powerful aura. This senior brother Emohai that all the disciples were talking about was no ordinary person. I am Emohai. You're the monkey whose flame power purity is over 90%? The man cupped his fist at the clown and asked directly. That's right. The clown nodded. Hee, very good. Flames burned in Emohai's eyes as his aura completely erupted. Boom! Scorching waves of flames began to radiate outward with him as the epicenter. All of the disciples stumbled back in fear as their faces paled, and Lin's heart jolted with shock upon seeing this. This is a domain. No, it's only in its embryonic form. Is it half-step soul formation stage? Emohai was enveloped in crimson waves of flames as he stared at the clown with a scorching light in his eyes. The clown gripped his silver staff tightly and didn't take a single step back. He knew that this battle was unavoidable. Emohai also burst into laughter upon seeing this. He clenched his fists, and his shirt tore open to reveal his muscular muscles. Ha! Now, then, please use your powerful flames to burn me to your heart's content. He raised his hands high into the air as he spoke and closed his eyes, as if he were a holy disciple receiving divine light. All right, let's fight. Huh? The clown's bulb-like eyes widened in shock as he raised his silver staff high into the air. Lin rubbed his eyes before glancing at the half-naked Emohai with his eyes closed. The corners of his lips twitched slightly. Emohai opened his eyes upon seeing that the clown wasn't moving. What is it? Come and burn me. The clown, I'm begging you just one more time. Can't you just treat me like a red crystal wall? Emohai begged. At this moment, the spectating disciples also began to stir. Burn him, burn him, burn him. Hurry up and burn Brother Emohai. Brother Monkey, I'm begging you. Hurry up and burn him. And Lin was astonished by this heresy, and he was unable to recover his composure for a long time. The clown scratched his head. Seeing the excited crowd and Emohai's expectant expression, he finally threw out a ball of flames with a resigned expression. The black flames were imbued with an aura of annihilation as they crashed into Emohai's chest. Emohai's heart-wrenching screams could be heard from the cultivation field as the flames around him collided with the black flames. Su Xiaolan and Lan Yin heard Emohai's screams as soon as they arrived at the cultivation field. Brother Monkey, fire harder. I can't take it anymore. Brother Monkey, slow down. Brother Monkey, make the firepower stronger. A group of disciples gathered in a circle, all of them blushing with embarrassment. Brother Mohai's screams are so funny. Lan Yin couldn't see him, but she could hear his voice. By the time Su Xiaolan and Lan Yin passed through the crowd, the intense battle had come to an end. Half of Mohai's body was black and red. He lay on the ground in a half-dead state, and the smell of barbecue wafted from his body. However, there was a blissful smile on his face. He had mastered the power of the black flames that could devour everything in the world. He was a maniac. As long as it was a powerful flame, he would test it with his own body. He had an innate talent, and that was the ability to accurately sense the power of fire and the intent of fire. Through this kind of direct comprehension, he was able to take a step further in his own path of the Tao of fire. It was this insane determination and talent that allowed him to become the #1 cultivator in the younger generation of the Vermilion Bird sect. Su Xiaolan's gaze swept past Mohai, who she couldn't bear to look at, before finally settling on the handsome young man. The young man also happened to look in her direction. Lin, Su Xiaolan. Chapter 144. Lin and Su Xiaolan called out each other's names at the same time. The spectators were initially dazed before coming to a realization. Lin was a student of class 1 of the Celestial Court, so the two of them were classmates. Furthermore, Lin had most likely come to the Vermilion Bird sect to see Su Xiaolan. Just like that, the atmosphere became a little tense. Some of the male disciples felt a sense of emptiness in their hearts. How should they put it? The fact that Lin was here to see Su Xiaolan meant that the two of them definitely had a special relationship. Su Xiaolan was an exquisite beauty with exceptional aptitude, and she was the goddess in the hearts of many sect disciples. A man had come to flirt with their goddess. Even his beast pet was super badass, so how could he possibly be weak? As such, they didn't even have a chance to mock him. How could they not feel conflicted? Su Xiaolan's flawless face blushed a little under the gazes of so many disciples. Normally, she would be able to remain composed even in front of tens of thousands of people. But now, these people weren't looking at her. Instead, they were looking at her and Enlin. What are you doing here? Su Xiaolan's heart was beating a little erratically as she spoke in a pleasant yet gentle voice. I'm here to see you. Enlin blinked as if to say, Isn't it obvious? Oh, the female disciples began to jeer. All the male disciples felt as if their hearts had been stabbed by a sword. It hurt so much. The jeering made Su Xiaolan's face turn red all the way to her ears. She was at a loss for words. In the end, she gritted her teeth and grabbed Enlin's hand before flying off on her sword. Let's go somewhere else to talk. She flew off into the distance with a whoosh as she spoke. Woof! Wait for me! Dabai yelled as he chased after her. The clown and Lan Yin also turned into a streak of light and followed closely behind. The crowd of disciples in the training ground stared blankly at the two people who flew away, their hearts surging with tempestuous waves. In less than half a day, a piece of breaking news would spread throughout the entire Vermilion Bird sect. Shocking. The mysterious man charged into the Vermilion Bird sect, roasted Mo high, and took off with Goddess Xiaolan. Su Xiaolan brought Enlin to a courtyard. She calmed herself down and complained, Why didn't you inform me in advance that you were coming to see me? Enlin was a little embarrassed as he said, This is a last-minute decision. After all, the holidays are really too boring, so I wanted to walk around and have a look. Did I cause trouble for you? When Su Xiaolan heard Enlin's words, she snorted softly and didn't reply, but her heart was filled with warmth. At this moment, Dabai descended from the sky, followed by the clown and Lan Yin. Ha, Sister Xiaolan. So he's the Enlin you've been talking about? Lan Yin felt like this was far too interesting. The weirdo she had encountered was the Enlin that Su Xiaolan had been talking about. Who's been talking about me? I've only mentioned him once in a while, okay? Su Xiaolan retorted anxiously. No wonder Big Brother and has been sneezing a lot recently. Xiaolan has been missing you. Dabai added fuel to the fire. Enlin stroked his chin as if he had just received an explanation. I see. Su Xiaolan's face, which had just recovered from a long time, became flushed again. So you're a big-headed ghost. Don't think too much about it. However, Lan Yin didn't seem to mind. She looked Enlin up and down carefully before nodding in satisfaction. This Enlin looks quite pleasing to the eye. Also, buy one get two free is a good deal. Sister, you've passed the test. Lan Yin turned to Enlin with an encouraging expression as she spoke. Su Xiaolan's chest constricted. I don't need you to do that. Enlin and I are just friends, do you understand? She felt like she couldn't allow herself to be misled by Enlin anymore. Let's go. It's rare for you to come here, so I'll take you on a tour of the Vermilion Bird sect. She turned to glare at Lan Yin as she spoke. You're not allowed to follow me. Lan Yin raised her hands in the air, but the smile on her face didn't fade. All right, I won't be a third wheel. I understand. Su Xiaolan's voice faltered, and she really wanted to yell, What the F***CK do you understand? In the end, she repressed the urge to say this out loud, and she flew into the air on her sword with Enlin in tow. In the courtyard, Dabai and Xiao Cho looked at each other. Dabai, are we considered third wheels? Xiao Cho, I don't know if you are, but my eyes are like light bulbs, so there's no way I'm not, right? Ha ha ha. You guys are hilarious. Ha ha. Lan Yin couldn't help but burst into laughter at the exchange between Dabai and Xiao Cho, and she couldn't even stand up straight. Dabai, Xiao Cho in the air, and Lin saw where Su Xiaolan usually cultivated and observed the holy vermilion flame from afar. The holy vermilion flame was a pure white flame that hovered in the air. Legends had it that it could purify all things, and it was an undying flame that was the symbol of the Vermilion Bird sect. As long as the holy vermilion flame was not extinguished, the Vermilion Bird sect would exist forever. After touring around the Vermilion Bird sect, the two of them landed on a thick branch at the outermost edge of the tree. This branch was very wide, allowing two people to walk side by side. Huh, there's a wooden chair here. And Lin exclaimed in surprise as he ran over. Su Xiaolan followed behind him with a dainty smile. This is my favorite place, and this chair is mine. Come, sit down. And Lin and Su Xiaolan sat down side by side. This wooden chair looked a bit like a park bench, but this was the first time he had sat on a tree. The branches and leaves above them blocked out the scorching sun, and only a few specks of light shone down like golden fireflies. A light breeze carried the fragrance of green leaves, and the leaves rustled in the wind. And Lin stretched lazily and sighed with emotion. It's so relaxing. It's very peaceful here. Sometimes I can feel the wind blowing in here and look at the blue sky and white clouds in the distance, as well as the vast land down below, and I can't help but feel better. Su Xiaolan rested her chin on her hand and smiled lightly. Oh, right? Aren't you afraid of heights? Aren't you afraid of sitting here? Su Xiaolan turned to Enlin with a smile on her face. Enlin's lips twitched with displeasure. You're underestimating me. I'm a man who can fly on my brick, and I've seen all kinds of storms. Su Xiaolan thought back to the time when she dragged Enlin through the sea of clouds on their swords. Enlin's face was deathly pale, as if he had lost his soul, and she couldn't help but chuckle lightly. She swung her long and slender legs. Where do you plan to go after touring the Vermilion Bird sect? A thoughtful expression appeared on Enlin's face. This was actually a problem. There were still 20 days left before the holiday. He had initially planned to visit the Vermilion Bird sect, then visit Xianyuan Cheng at the 10,000 Spirits Immortal sect, and then visit Su Qianyan at the Greenwood Imperial Palace. However, now that he had learned the 6 strikes of the War God, his combat prowess had increased drastically, and he couldn't help but have other thoughts. I might go to the abyss of evil, he replied truthfully. Su Xiaolan's expression shifted upon hearing this. Why would you go there? There are sinister demons there. And Lin nodded. I'm going there to defeat a sinister demon. And what kind of weird benefits will you receive after completing this mission? Su Xiaolan raised her brows. And Lin, you know me so well. How am I supposed to answer this? Seeing that Enlin didn't reply, Su Xiaolan pursed her lips. Forget it. I've already taken care of some matters at the sect. I can go and be your bodyguard or something. Enlin's eyes lit up. Really? But the abyss of evil is very dangerous, so I want 100,000 spirit stones as a bodyguard this time. That'll be enough to cover the cost of that robe of yours. Su Xiaolan said with a smile, and Lin blinked. Didn't we already cover the cost of the photo? That photo doesn't count. How could I take advantage of you like that? It's settled then. Su Xiaolan waved her hand with a determined expression. And Lin thought for a moment. It was indeed a good thing to have another spirit nurturing stage cultivator as a helper. All right, it's settled then. Chapter 145. The two of them hit it off immediately. Su Xiaolan would act as Lin's bodyguard, and the fee was 100,000 spirit stones. That night, Lin and Abai spent the night in the Vermilion Bird Tower of the Vermilion Bird sect. Shocking. A mysterious man barged into the Vermilion Bird sect, roasted Mo high, and then flew off with Goddess Xiaolan. Sure enough, this explosive piece of news swept through the entire Vermilion Bird sect in less than half a day. As Lin walked out of the tower and stood in the corridor, he attracted the attention of countless sect disciples and attendants. They all wanted to see this mysterious man clearly. Just what kind of superhuman ability did he have to be able to do such a shocking thing? And Lin sighed softly. It looked like the daily life in this kind of super cultivation sect was really boring. Otherwise, such a small matter wouldn't have attracted so much gossip. He raised his head and looked at the eternal holy vermilion flame hanging high in the sky. He stared at it in a daze. The holy vermilion flame released a beautiful white light at night. It was holy and noble. It was like a lighthouse, guiding the sect disciples and letting them know that this was their home. Within a tall golden tower of the Vermilion Bird sect, a middle-aged man with crimson hair and beard sat on a chair and ate a dragon fruit with great relish. This dragon fruit was a third-rank spirit fruit, and there were several small fire dragons coiled around its flesh. Every bite he took was incredibly spicy, and the pure flame energy was swallowed into the man's stomach along with the flesh of the fruit. Oh, this feels good. It had been a long time since the man had eaten a dragon fruit. This fruit was priceless, and each one was extremely valuable. At this moment, a red-robed youth walked in and half-knelt on the ground. Reporting to Elder Zhu, "The matter has been investigated." Tell me about it," the middle-aged man called Elder Zhu said as he ate a dragon fruit. Senior brother Mo Hai was burned by a monkey of the spirit-nurturing final stage. However, this was at his own request. The purity of the black flames released by the monkey was indeed over 90%. Its owner was Enlin, a classmate of Celestial Court Class 1 with junior sister Sue. Also, Enlin is riding a giant white hound pet beast, and the hound has our sex elder's token. The red-robed young man reported the results of his investigation to Elder Zhu. Elder Zhu nodded repeatedly as he listened to the young man's investigation results. At the end of the report, his eyebrows raised slightly. "Oh, a dog actually has an elder's token? Whose token is it?" "Yes, there's a Zhu character on the token," the young man said honestly. Cough, cough. Elder Zhu choked on the dragon fruit. "Do you know what it feels like to choke on an incomparably spicy chili? Water. Cough. Water. Quickly give me water." Elder Zhu wailed. After drinking a bucket of water and 10 cooling pills, Elder Zhu slumped into a chair and waved his hand at the young man, indicating for him to leave. "The white dog has my badge on it. Could he be Bai Xian's son?" Elder Zhu was in disbelief. My God, Bai Xian was willing to let his son become that man's beast pet. No, that monkey that can use divine flames can become that man's beast pet. Could it be that there's something special about that Enlin? Elder Zhu felt like there was still too little information on Enlin. He had to investigate further. For the sake of his niece, Su Xiaolan, he had to keep a close eye on him. However, the next day, another piece of shocking news arrived, causing Elder Zhu to jump up in fright. Shocking. The mysterious man had escaped from the Vermilion Bird sect with Goddess Su. This news was spread by a certain Lan who didn't want to be named, and it was quickly verified. One day later, in the air above the Heavenly River State in the southeastern region of the Kingdom of the Nine States, a huge black brick covered in golden light streaked across the sky. Bang! Bang! I've won! Ha! Clean, I've won! And Lin chortled heartily as he received another pile of spirit stones. Su Xiaolan heaved a forlorn sigh. Xiao Chou scratched his head, and Dabai wore a dejected expression. And Lin really lived up to his reputation as the little tyrant of Mahjong. They didn't believe him before, but now they were suffering. He had won several thousand spirit stones in one day. Aside from Su Xiaolan, Dabai and Xiao Chou had both won big. Xiao Hong stood beside the brick, swaying her bright red head as she photosynthesized. The big windmill is spinning. The scenery here is so beautiful. The sky is beautiful. The earth is beautiful. And there are happy friends. This was the divine song of photosynthesis that Lin had taught her. She could sing this song for an entire day. The Abyss of Evil was located on the southeastern border of the Kingdom of the Nine States, and it was a natural barrier between the Kingdom of the Nine States and the Ant Tribe. The Ant Tribe was a rather renowned tribe on the Tai Chu continent. They didn't have many top-tier powerful beings, but they had an extremely high reproductive rate. If it weren't for the fact that the Ant Tribe had always been a part of the Tai Chu continent, they would probably have eaten up all of their land already. The relationship between the Ant Tribe and the humans of the Kingdom of the Nine States was very bad. If the Ant Tribe didn't have the Abyss of Evil to their north and the Beast Tribe to their west, they would probably be at war with the cultivators of the Kingdom of the Nine States all year round like the Snow Maidens. Look, that's the Abyss of Evil up ahead. Xiao Hong swayed her body as she yelled in her sweet voice. and Lin and the others looked forward to find a gigantic abyss several thousand feet wide and unfathomably deep appearing in their field of vision. The sun was clearly blazing in the sky, but this abyss was so pitch black that it struck fear into the hearts of all onlookers, as if it was going to engulf all light. Soon, everyone arrived at the top of the abyss. Are we just going to fly down like this? Su Xiaolan asked as she looked down at the abyss. And Lin nodded. Xiao Qiu, turn on the lights. Xiao Qiu clang. An extremely dazzling light suddenly burst forth from Xiao Qiu's golden eyes, shooting downward like a searchlight. Wow, that's awesome, Su Xiaolan exclaimed in surprise. Thus, the black brick slowly descended. Everyone began to raise their guard and enter a state of combat readiness. Aside from the small number of sinister devils in the abyss of evil, there were also many ferocious and sinister mutant beasts lurking in the darkness, ready to strike at any moment. As they descended deeper and deeper into the abyss, the light became dimmer and dimmer. Looking up, they could see that there was a white band in the sky that was becoming narrower and narrower. Xiao Hong hid in Lin's pocket again and observed from the shadows. We haven't reached the bottom yet. I think we've already descended for over a kilometer. Su Xiaolan was quite afraid of the dark, and she spoke with unease. Xiao Qiu shook his head. No, my searchlight still can't reach the bottom. There's at least another kilometer. Little brother, you've finally admitted that your eyes are searchlights, woof. Bai was elated as he made his presence known. Xiao Qiu, thus, everyone descended for another kilometer. At this moment, the air around them became cold and damp, and the light was so dim that it was almost negligible. Xiao Qiu's searchlight still couldn't reach the bottom. They were now 2 kilometers below the surface. 3 kilometers. 5 kilometers. 8 kilometers. The air became extremely thin. If it weren't for the fact that Lin and the others were cultivators, they would have most likely suffocated to death already. They looked up to see that the sky had become a white line. Due to the protrusion of the rocks, as well as the irregular rock formations in the abyss, the white line was already faintly discernible. Everything around them was pitch black and deathly silent. Occasionally, there would be the sound of water dripping, followed by the sound of everyone's slow breathing. We're here. I can already see the bottom. Xiao Qiu suddenly spoke. Everyone couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief upon hearing this. After descending for over 10 kilometers, they finally landed. Chapter 146. Tens of thousands of meters underground, the ground was filled with fractured rock formations. Under the illumination of Xiao Qiu's searchlight, they discovered that there were large, pitch-black ravines that they could explore further. This place clearly wasn't the deepest one. However, after some discussion, they decided to explore the nearby area first. The appearance of evil demons was random. Perhaps one would just happen to encounter one while walking around. Xiao Qiu, your light. No. Can your eyes get any brighter? Su Xiaolan asked nervously as she looked around at the eerie darkness around them. Xiao Qiu replied with a resigned expression, Don't even ask me to get any brighter. I'm going to have to stop using my radiant eyes soon. Everyone was shocked to hear this. What? Xiao Qiu, you going to turn off the lights later? And Lin exclaimed, No, third brother, it's not bedtime yet. Why are you turning off the lights, woof? Dabai wailed. Xiao Qiu's face convulsed. I'm going to be very tired if I keep using my powers like this. Of course I need a rest. And Lin heaved a forlorn sigh. How much longer can you last? Xiao Qiu pondered for a moment. 10 seconds. And Lin, Su Xiaolan cracked. The lights dimmed. Everything around them became pitch black, true pitch black. A gust of cold wind blew past, and Lin felt all the hairs on his body stand on end. And Lin, what are we going to do in this kind of horror movie atmosphere? It's so eerie. Do you think a headless female ghost will suddenly appear? Su Xiaolan shuddered in fear. I told you not to watch so many horror movies in the mortal world. Now you know how to be afraid? And Lin pursed his lips. He was a relatively fearless person. No matter how eerie the environment was, it wouldn't make him afraid. This was evidenced by the fact that he was able to make Tian Lingling cry in the mortal world, and the female, ghost with bulging eyes, cry. How about this? I'll walk in front. And Lin felt like it was time to show off his manliness, so he patted his chest. He had only just walked in front when his body began to plummet. Help! Ah! And Lin screamed in fear. He was not afraid of ghosts, but he was afraid of heights. The most frightening thing was the unknown depth of the fall. And Lin, big brother, and the others cried out in alarm. I'm fine. And Lin slowly flew up on his brick, and his body was drenched in cold sweat. Also, when he was falling, he seemed to see countless pairs of green eyes, but they disappeared in the blink of an eye, which made him feel a little uneasy. And Lin returned to the surface and used a flame immortal art. He discovered that there were cracks spreading out like a spiderweb. If there's no light here, we won't be able to walk at all. Dabai took a look and said, why don't we take turns to use the illumination immortal art? And Lin sighed. That's the only way. Everyone, pay attention to conserve energy when using immortal techniques. Otherwise, it'll be troublesome if we encounter an enemy. With that, he swallowed a chi-replenishing pill, gathered the flames in his palm, and continued to walk forward slowly. The flames could only illuminate an area of several tens of feet, so everyone was on high alert. After walking for a long while, there was still nothing. And Lin was beginning to wonder if there were any living beings in this place. Hiss, hiss, hiss. Suddenly, a sound traveled over from the distance. This sound didn't just come from a front. Instead, it came from all directions. Are the monsters finally here? To be honest, if it's too quiet, it'll be more terrifying. If there are monsters here for us to fight, it'll help alleviate the fear, Su Xiaolan said excitedly. And Lin, everyone, be careful. They had already formed a circle and were on guard against the monsters around them. Green dots began to appear in the darkness like stars, and they began to draw closer and closer. There's a lot of them. Xiao Chou gripped his silver staff tightly. And Lin had also noticed this. He could sense many powerful auras slowly approaching, and those green dots were the mutant beast's eyes. He pulled out his evil slaying sword. At a time like this, he had to use the 6 strikes of the war god. I'll unleash my Fire Phoenix Tornado in a 360-degree attack. Su Xiaolan's fingers flew through the air as she made a series of hand seals. When a mutant beast pounce over, I'll use my heavenly wind suppression to suppress their movements. Woof! Fierce winds revolved around Dabai's body, and an astonishing aura also erupted from his body. He was clearly prepared for a fight to the death. Xiao Chou also nodded with a solemn expression. Then I'll turn on the lights first. Clang! A dazzling light suddenly erupted from Xiao Chou's eyes. Like 2 massive pillars of light, the surroundings were instantly illuminated as bright as day. Hiss, 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 hiss. Extremely shrill cries suddenly erupted from all directions. Almost all of the green dots began to dim, as if they were blinded by the light. Rumble! The mutated beasts scrambled to escape, retreating like the tide. Everything returned to normal, and Lin, Dabai, Su Xiaolan, Xiao Chou, you've turned on the lights. It's like world peace. And Lin's lips twitched. As expected, Xiao Chou's searchlight is the ultimate weapon. After recovering from her daze, Su Xiaolan was pleasantly surprised. She found a sense of security in Xiao Chou's eyes. Third brother, if we encounter mutant beasts in the future, we'll have to rely on you to stare them to death. Woof! Dabai also looked excited. Xiao Chou, hence, under the insistence of Lin and the others, Xiao Chou switched off the lights again to conserve power. Tui, he withdrew his divine power again to conserve his energy. When they encountered mutant beasts, he would use Xiao Chou's ultimate weapon to blind them. Everyone continued forward. Not long after, a red dot of light appeared, and a powerful aura began to approach. Xiao Chou, switch on the lights. Clang! 2 streaks of golden light illuminated the surrounding space, and several giant black, lizard-like exotic beasts were forced to flee in panic. After a long while, a yellow dot of light appeared, and a powerful aura began to approach. Xiao Chou, switch on the lights. Clang! 2 beams of golden light illuminated the surrounding space. More than a dozen rock pythons were frightened by the terrifying light and fled in all directions. Switch on the lights. Clang. Switch on the lights. Clang. Just like that, Lin and the others advanced bravely, and it was difficult for them to encounter a worthy opponent. Do you guys think the sinister devils will also be scared away by Third Brother's ultimate weapon? Dabai looked at Xiao Cho with admiration. That shouldn't be the case. From what I know, sinister devils are active even when the sun is high in the sky. Furthermore, their structure is different from normal mutant beasts, and they aren't affected by light as much, and Lin replied. In order to defeat the sinister devils, and Lin had collected a lot of information about them. Sinister devils didn't have the structure of normal living beings, and they didn't have cultivation levels. Before a battle, one wouldn't even be able to sense just how powerful these dark and twisted things were. This was also the most dangerous aspect of sinister devils. As they spoke, an extremely powerful aura appeared in front of them. Xiao Cho, switch on the lights. Clang. Two beams of golden light illuminated the surroundings, and a giant black tortoise was struck by Xiao Cho's ultimate weapon. Boom! A black mist suddenly spewed out from the giant tortoise's mouth, and it attacked Lin and the others. Holy F***! This giant tortoise has no eyes. Hurry up and dodge. Following in Lin's shout, everyone was given a fright, and they all leaped in different directions. The black mist struck the rocky ground, and a large hole was instantly corroded into it. It was clear that this mist was extremely dangerous. Since switching on the lights doesn't work, then let's fight. Lin yelled, and he drew his evil-slaying sword and charged toward the giant tortoise. Chapter 147. Big Brother and be careful, there's two of them. Xiao Cho yelled. A huge crimson turtle of close to 100 feet in length leaped down toward Lin from the rock face above. Holy F***! Is this a crushing blow? Lin raised his head to discover that the round turtle shell was like a massive boulder crashing down upon him with unstoppable force. Wind spirit. Rings of wind revolved around his feet as his body flashed through the air. Boom! The huge turtle crashed down, causing the entire ground to tremble. Lin's sudden increase in speed allowed him to evade this terrifying attack. At this moment, Dabai slashed out several extremely sharp, white blades of wind with his claws. The blades of wind whistled through the air as they slashed into the huge crimson turtle's head, causing a loud explosion. However, the red turtle was knocked back a few steps, but there was no wound on its head. The huge black turtle spat out another mouthful of black mist. At this moment, the huge crimson turtle spat out a monstrous amount of flames, which combined with the black mist to form a crimson flaming dragon that pounced toward everyone. Seeing this, everyone used their movement techniques to evade. The ground in the wake of the crimson flaming dragon was charred black and corroded. Are these two turtles a couple? They even know how to combine their powers, and Lin said with lingering fear as he stared at the pitch-black trench left behind by the flaming dragon. At this moment, Su Xiaolan brandished her long sword and slashed out a flaming sword strike that was imbued with the pure power of fire. The sword strike struck the huge black turtle, and the flames exploded, engulfing everything within a radius of 100 feet in a sea of flames. Sizzle. The black mist broke through the flames and charged towards Su Xiaolan. Su Xiaolan's expression shifted, and she immediately used her movement technique to evade. The huge black turtle charged out of the sea of flames, still full of energy and vigor, seemingly unscathed. At this moment, Xiao Cho had already reached the huge crimson turtle, and he swung his silver staff toward its head with immense power. In the face of an attack imbued with the full power of a spirit-nurturing final stage cultivator, the huge crimson turtle did not retreat. Instead, it extended its head and rammed it into Xiao Cho. Rumble. The clown felt like he had hit a steel plate. The shockwave formed by the shockwave caused the ground to crack. The giant red tortoise did not take a single step back, but the clown was forced to take a few steps back. It's fine if the tortoise shell is hard, but why is the tortoise head so hard as well? The retreating clown was shocked. Allow me. And Lin charged toward the crimson turtle with his evil slaying sword in hand. The red tortoise sensed Lin and immediately spat out raging flames at him. The flames were like huge waves, bringing with them an incomparably scorching heat as they swept towards him. At this moment, a strong wind pressure suddenly appeared, tearing the flames apart and forming an empty passageway. "Big brother and run faster, woof!" Dabai yelled as he maintained a wind pressure barrier with his palms. Lin rushed into the passage that Dabai had created for him, and the ring of wind under his feet appeared again. Although the red tortoise didn't have eyes, it could still sense Lin charging towards it through other means. It also felt a sense of danger. Its elongated head immediately shrank back into the turtle shell. "You want to be a cowardly turtle? It's too late," Lin yelled. Streams of white wind suddenly revolved around the evil-slaying sword, and its speed was as fast as lightning. First technique, wind sword. Whoosh! A thin white line appeared around the red tortoise's neck, forming a faintly discernible ring. Su Xiaolan, who was holding off the red tortoise with the clown, glanced in Lin's direction from the corner of her eyes. She was also given a fright by Lin's exceptional sword technique. Boom! The red tortoise crashed to the ground, and its head slid off its body along the gaping wound as a huge amount of blood gushed forth. The wind sword's advantage lay in its extreme speed, but its weakness was also very obvious, and that was its lack of power. However, the evil-slaying sword, which was insanely sharp, made up for this weakness, making the wind sword an extremely fearsome sword technique. After unleashing the wind sword, Lin felt as if his body had been hollowed out. However, he couldn't rest yet as he still had to deal with a red tortoise. He wielded the evil-slaying sword and charged toward the other red tortoise. "Lin, when did your sword techniques become so powerful?" Su Xiaolan exclaimed after witnessing Lin slay the red tortoise with his sword. "I'm a prodigy. Please call me Sword Immortal Lin now." Lin smiled smugly, and his body was already charging toward the red tortoise. The red tortoise sensed that the red tortoise was already dead, and it was so frightened that it completely retracted its head into its shell. Lin's long sword slashed toward the area where the red tortoise's head had retracted into its shell. However, that area was already covered by a layer of stratum corneum, and the evil-slaying sword was only able to leave a shallow mark on it. Right at this moment, a monstrous black mist once again erupted from the red tortoise's body, and Lin had no choice but to retreat. At this moment, Su Xiaolan and Dabai's attacks began blasting toward the red tortoise. Their attacks pierced through the black mist and struck the red tortoise's shell, causing a resounding boom to ring out. However, the red tortoise remained as still as a mountain. Instead, as if it had a life of its own, the clouds of black mist began to pounce toward everyone in a frenzy. Then, the red tortoise began to move backward while maintaining its retracted head. "Big brother, and it's trying to get away, woof." Dabai dodged an attack from a cloud of black mist as he spoke in a panicked voice. Lin looked at this moving tortoise shell, and he felt a headache coming on. There was nothing he could do. Are we just going to let it go like this? Su Xiaolan was unwilling to give up. Right at this moment, a crisp voice sounded. "Lightning manipulation technique of divine sword." Immediately afterward, a bolt of white lightning as thick as a water bucket descended from the sky, and like a sharp sword that tore through the darkness, it struck the center of the red tortoise. Boom! Lightning exploded, and white electricity flowed through the red tortoise's shell. An anguished wail sounded from the red tortoise, and its huge head was forced out of its shell by the bolt of lightning. Wild goose slash! A woman in white descended from the sky, and her long sword slashed down upon the red tortoise's head like a wild goose. Rip! The head fell to the ground, and blood splattered through the air. After the woman's slash landed, she leaped toward Lin and the others. Her movements were as smooth as flowing water, and her movements were extremely graceful. Through Xiao Chao's searchlight, Lin could see that the woman's features were extremely beautiful, and the tear mole at the corner of her eye gave off a sense of delicateness and charm. "Thank you for your assistance." Su Xiaolan expressed her gratitude. It was nothing. The demonic abyss tortoise's weakness is lightning. As long as it's struck by a powerful electric current, its physical defenses will be broken. The woman in white smiled as she explained. Xiao Chou came to a sudden realization. No wonder he was fine when he smashed the red tortoise's head with his staff, but this woman was able to sever the red tortoise's head with a single slash of her sword. They were both spirit-nurturing, final-stage cultivators, and she didn't have a hack like Enlin, so there shouldn't be such a huge disparity between them. So this was the reason. Then may I ask if your name is Lu Sweki? Enlin asked with a surprised expression. The woman in white was slightly taken aback. Lu Wachi, my name is Ji Yinling. Oh, Enlin was a little disappointed. The abyss of evil is an extremely perilous place. May I ask why you've taken the risk to come here? Ji Yinling continued. Enlin, to defeat a sinister devil. You can't think of it as a mission. Defeat a sinister devil. Ji Yinling's eyes widened in shock. There are people these days who specifically seek out sinister devils to fight. Sinister devils were so terrifying that normal cultivators would avoid them at all costs, who would actively seek them out. And Lin didn't reply and only smiled sheepishly. Su Xiaolan harumphed coldly and didn't want to say another word. Ji Yinling saw their expressions and knew that they weren't joking. Her brows furrowed again. I'll tell you the truth. I've already been in the abyss of evil for over a year, but I still haven't found a single sinister devil. If you want to find sinister devils, then you must be prepared to survive in the abyss of evil for a long time. Not a single one in over a year. Everyone was dumbstruck. They knew that there were very few sinister devils in the abyss of evil, but they didn't think that there would be so few. There were only less than 20 days left of the holiday. This is truly devastating news. And Lin spoke with grief and indignation. Chapter 148. Within the boundless darkness of the abyss of evil, there was a speck of light. A bonfire burned brightly as Lin and the others sat around it. Are you sure this meat is edible? Su Xiaolan stared at the meat of the giant tortoise with a conflicted expression. Don't worry, I've eaten no less than 10 demonic abyss tortoises in the past year. Aren't they still alive and kicking? Ji Yinling replied nonchalantly. Delicious. Red tortoises have a richer aroma when roasted. And Lin was the first to start eating without any reservations. Having tasted all kinds of mutant beasts in the Myriad Mountain realm, he naturally ate this demonic abyss tortoise without any hesitation. Ms. Yinling, the abyss of evil is fraught with peril. Why have you wandered around here for over a year? Su Xiaolan asked curiously. She really couldn't imagine what it was like to survive alone in an environment like this for over a year. Setting aside the fact that this place was fraught with peril, just the boundless darkness and the gloomy and oppressive atmosphere was completely unbearable for her. And Lin also looked toward Ji Yinling with curiosity. Even though she was a spirit-nurturing final-stage cultivator, it was still extremely difficult for her to survive in an environment like this. What was the reason for her to make such a decision? Ji Yinling forced a smile onto her face and lowered her eyes. I'm looking for someone here. If I can't find him, then I won't go back. Su Xiaolan was still perplexed. How do you know the person you're looking for is here? Ji Yinling pulled out the necklace around her neck. There was a gem that glowed with a faint blue light on the necklace. I got separated from him here. As long as this gem is still glowing, it means he's still alive. Sect, family. I've searched everywhere I could, but I still couldn't find any trace of him. But I feel a sense of familiarity after returning here. I know he must still be here, trapped somewhere, waiting for me to rescue him. Seeing the determined expression on her face, and Lin and the others knew that she would never leave this place until she found that person. And Lin reached into his pocket and patted Xiao Hong's head. Master, that person didn't lie. Xiao Hong transmitted her voice, and Lin nodded and suggested, we're going to wander around the abyss of evil anyway, so we can work together if we encounter any danger. Ji Yinling was slightly taken aback before speaking with a conflicted expression. Can I really? I won't cause any trouble for you guys. She had long been accustomed to wandering alone in the dark. Now that someone suddenly invited her to go with them, she became somewhat at a loss. On the one hand, if there were more people, it might be helpful for her to find someone. On the other hand, she was afraid that she would be a burden to the other party. On one hand, having more people would be a lot easier for her. After all, we've already confirmed that there aren't any sinister devils in the places you've been to before, so we'll be able to avoid many detours. Su Xiaolan extended an invitation with a smile. It had to be said that Su Xiaolan's words were very effective. Ji Yinling looked at everyone gratefully before finally nodding in agreement. She was the eldest disciple of the One Valley Immortal sect of the Heavenly River State, and she was of the spirit-nurturing final stage. The person she was looking for was her Dao partner, Wang Lu. They were in the abyss of evil and had been separated due to a demonic uprising. On one side, they were looking for a sinister devil, while on the other, they were looking for a person. They were both searching in a random direction anyway, so traveling together was actually a good choice. Xiaoqiu had already switched off the lights, so Ji Yinling took out a white ball of light. This was a high-rank magic tool, the luminous pearl, that she had specially purchased. It had no other functions other than to emit light. It was extremely bright, had a large storage capacity, and could last for a long time. Wang Lu, are you there? Ji Yinling held the luminous pearl in her hand and yelled in a crisp voice. However, her voice was engulfed by the boundless darkness like the light from the luminous pearl, and there was no response. Lin and the others followed behind her in silence. She continued to yell that person's name over and over again, as if she didn't know what fatigue was. Perhaps her persistence had an effect, as her voice finally received a response. Roar! A dull roar erupted from a distance. Immediately afterward, two golden eyes appeared in the darkness like two huge lanterns, and an extremely powerful aura swept toward them. Ji Yinling's expression shifted, and she habitually leaped onto her sword, preparing to flee. Then, she saw everyone behind her and came to a realization. Aren't we going to flee? I heard that sinister devils are also energy bodies, and they need to absorb the energy of powerful creatures to sustain their own activities. This creature is a lot more powerful than the demonic abyss tortoise. Let's see if we can use its corpse to summon a sinister devil, and Lin suggested. Xiaoqiu, switch on the lights. Clang! Two powerful pillars of light shot forward, illuminating their surroundings. A gigantic mutant beast over 100 feet in size appeared in everyone's field of vision. It lay prone on the ground, and its eyes narrowed slightly from the strong light, but it was not afraid. This was a dragon. It wasn't a WIRM like the ones from the dragon court of the Eastern Seas. Instead, it was a black lizard dragon with huge bat wings, and its entire body exuded a chaotic and violent aura. Countless black spikes floated around this black dragon, exuding an aura of death. This is a domain? Su Xiaolan's body tensed up as she exclaimed in shock. Xiaoqiu shook his head. It's not soul formation stage yet. It's most likely only just attained its domain, and it hasn't completely evolved yet. Half-step soul formation stage? Looks like this is going to be a tough battle. And Lin drew his evil-slaying sword, and his expression became grave. Ji Yinling heaved a faint sigh and also drew her longsword. From the looks of it, they had no choice but to fight. Are you done chatting? The black dragon slowly opened its mouth, and a deep voice sounded out. Everyone's expression became solemn upon hearing this. This mutant beast clearly possessed a high level of intelligence. Mom of the children, come and eat. The black dragon continued. Everyone, what are you yelling for? You're a male dragon. Do you want me to cook for you? A loud voice sounded in the distance. Immediately afterward, another huge black dragon flew over from a distance. Every time it flapped its wings, it would summon up a frosty storm. Just looking at it from afar was enough to make one's heart palpitate. F*CK, another half-step soul formation stage dragon. And Lin was a little dumbstruck as he stared at the other huge dragon. No, this is a female dragon of soul formation stage. Xiaoqiu corrected. And Lin, Su Xiaolan, Ji Yinling, Do we still fight? Lin's lips twitched. Fight? Fight my A***s. Hurry up and run. He roared as he climbed onto Debai's body and immediately fled into the distance. Lin's roar caused Xiao Qiu, Su Xiaolan, and Ji Yanling to come to their senses, and they immediately fled into the distance with all their might. What are you still doing here? Can't you see that dinner is about to run away? The female dragon roared in rage as she materialized an inky black spear of ice, which she stabbed toward the male dragon's butt. Howl! The ice spear pierced into his butt, and black blood splattered out. The male dragon howled in anguish as his fat body rose into the air, then flew toward Lin and the others with extreme reluctance. How can you use domestic violence in front of outsiders? So what if I use domestic violence in front of food? If the food gets away, I'll eat your flesh. The two dragons flew at an extremely fast speed, and even though Lin and the others were flying at full speed, the distance between them was still closing. Right at this moment, the male dragon sucked in a deep breath and unleashed a blast of flames toward everyone in front of him. The purple flames carried with them an extremely high temperature as they pounced toward Lin and the others. Chapter 149. Purple flames blotted out the sky and engulfed Lin and the others. At this moment, the male dragon was struck by another ice spear on his butt. Howl! The male dragon howled in anguish. Are you an idiot? How am I supposed to eat if you burn my food when you spit fire like that? The female dragon's enraged roar sounded in the distance. The male dragon's lantern-like eyes were filled with tears. This wouldn't do. That wouldn't do. What was he supposed to do? Mountain quaking fist, gale cannon, frost slash, and Lin, Dabai, and Ji Yanling attacked together, creating an opening in the purple flames. The purple flames whizzed past them, bringing with them an indescribable heat and ruthlessness. The male dragon heaved a sigh of relief upon seeing this. Thankfully, these human cultivators were quite powerful and didn't get roasted. Otherwise, they would be in for a beating again. Xiao Qiu, turn on your lights and look at the ground. Lin yelled in a panicked voice. The clown used his searchlight god art. The intense light shone on the ground and revealed the terrain in the distance. At this moment, the male dragon and the female dragon were less than 1,000 feet away. Follow me. Lin swooped down on dog kinesis flight. Ha ha, human cultivators, you won't be able to escape. Surrender now, and I'll give you a quick death. Seeing that the crowd was getting closer and closer, male dragon revealed a victorious expression as he spouted some trash talk. His domain had already expanded and his black spikes glowed with a bloodthirsty light. Once he closed in, he would instantly pierce through the bodies of the human cultivators. This is the place. Lin, who was flying a low altitude, spotted a pitch-black fissure in the distance and abruptly dove into it. Su Xiaolan and the others' eyes lit up as they understood Lin's intentions, and they all followed closely behind. Don't even think about escaping. The male dragon's expression shifted as he flapped his wings in pursuit, his huge body crashing into the fissure. Boom! The ground quaked violently from the impact. His head was stuffed into the fissure, but his fat body was unable to squeeze through. That's right, this pitch-black fissure was only 30 to 40 feet wide, but his body was over 100 feet long. Piss off! The female dragon, who had been whipping the male dragon from behind, flew into a rage and kicked the male dragon away. Another loud sound came from the ground. The dragon head that was stuck in the crack was almost fractured by this kick, and a long gully was formed on the ground. The mother dragon looked at Lin and the others who were fleeing into the depths of the forest and spat out a chilling breath of destruction. Even if he couldn't get his dinner, he would ruin it here. And Lin and the others, who were flying downwards, suddenly felt an extremely terrifying energy behind them. It was a kind of energy that seemed to be able to freeze everything. Everywhere it passed, even the air began to solidify. This wasn't the half-baked attack of a male dragon, but the full power attack of a soul formation stage dragon. Stay close to me, Lin shouted. Su Xiaolan and the others immediately moved closer to Lin. Big. The chaotic alloy brick quickly expanded and stood in front of Enlin. Rumble. The breath collided with the brick, and Enlin stumbled back from the terrifying impact. The chilling breath was unable to penetrate the brick, but the breath that did pass through the outer layer of the brick still brought with it a bone-chilling sensation, as if it was going to freeze one's blood completely. Thank God I have Big Brother, In's divine brick. Otherwise, I would have become a frozen dog, woof. Dabai said with lingering fear. Above the fissure, the female dragon's chest constricted when she saw that her attack had been blocked by a spirit-nurturing stage cultivator. Motherf asterisk cur. Did those despicable human cultivators become ice sculptures? The male dragon rubbed his neck and ran over. F asterisk CKU. The female dragon kicked the male dragon flying. She glared at the cultivators flying further and further away, but there was nothing she could do in the end. She could only vent her anger on the male dragon. Enlin and the others all breathed a long sigh of relief when they saw that they were already out of range of the female dragon's attack. They knew that they wouldn't be able to go back through the fissure in the short term, so they could only continue to fly downward along the fissure. Their surroundings were still pitch black, but under the illumination of the luminous pearls, they discovered that the rock walls on either side showed no signs of shrinking. Instead, they continued to expand. It looks like there's another independent space at the bottom of the fissure. There should be mutant beasts in there, and there are a whole pack of them. Ji Yinling had been to similar spaces many times, so she had a lot of experience. Sure enough, after descending for over a kilometer, they arrived at a vast space. There's light here, Enlin exclaimed. There were specks of green light in the rock ceiling at the top of the space. The light was very dim, but it was very conspicuous in this completely dark environment. These are shadow bugs. They like to appear in places with abundant water. With such a large number of shadow bugs, there might be an underground lake here, Ji Yinling explained. A lake? Could there be water monsters? Sure enough, they didn't have to go far before they saw a small lake up ahead through the light of the luminous pearls. Wang Lu, are you there? Ji Yinling began to call out that person's name again, and her voice even caused ripples to appear on the calm surface of the lake. Her calls received no response, but there was no sign of discouragement on her face as she continued onward. That's right, she had probably repeated this call over 1,000,000 times already. Without the support of a strong will, there was no way she would be able to continue like this. Enlin was very impressed by this woman, and he was quite touched by her fragile yet determined figure. Right at this moment, he suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. A chaotic and twisted aura swept toward him, and he immediately gripped his sword in fear. However, this aura was like a gust of wind, dispersing with a single gust of wind before everything returned to normal. He looked around in bewilderment to find that everyone had the same expression on their faces. This is most likely the Dark Abyss wind. I've encountered it countless times. It's not dangerous. Ji Yinling spoke with great experience. Enlin and the others finally breathed a sigh of relief upon hearing this. However, right at this moment, another gust of cold aura swept toward them, giving them goosebumps. And then a chaotic and twisted aura swept toward them from all directions, intermingled with violent and despairing negative emotions. Is this also the effect of the Dark Abyss wind? Enlin's entire body trembled as he asked nervously. Cold sweat beaded on Ji Yinling's forehead as she swallowed involuntarily. I don't know. Xiao Chou, turn on the lights. Clang. Xiao Chou's searchlight instantly lit up the darkness around them. A series of pitch-black, twisted objects began to appear in everyone's field of vision. They slowly moved toward them from all directions and had already surrounded Enlin and the others. These twisted objects were about the same size as humans, but there was no pattern to their appearance. It was as if they were pools of pitch-black liquid that could fly on their own. Despair, violence, depravity, hatred, all sorts of negative emotions rippled outward in all directions, making one's head feel like it was about to explode. An expression of shock appeared on Enlin's face as he stared at these twisted objects. Then he felt as if his mind was about to be sucked into them, and his body instinctively reacted with disgust. Be careful, everyone. These are sinister devils. Through their various characteristics, he discovered that these twisted objects were all sinister devils. Everyone was a little incredulous upon hearing this. Wasn't there supposed to be very few sinister devils in the abyss of evil? How come there were so many of them all of a sudden? Lin recalled something Ji Yanling had said before. In a vast, independent space, there is often a tribe. The tribe in this space couldn't be sinister devils, right? Chapter 150. Lin only wanted one sinister devil, but now there was a whole bunch of sinister devils. They really didn't want this kind of luxurious sinister devil gift pack. Lin already held the Soul Formation Stage Offensive Talisman in his left hand. If the enemies were too powerful, then he would have to use this trump card. He looked around at the sinister devils surrounding them to find that there were a total of 12 sinister devils. Sinister devils didn't have cultivation bases, so he couldn't sense just how powerful they were. However, a sense of extreme danger enveloped his entire body. Whoosh! 4 sinister devils sprang into action, pouncing toward Lin and the others. Fire Spirit. Flames engulfed Su Xiaolan's entire body, and she was like a phoenix bathed in flames as she slashed through the air with her long sword, unleashing one flaming sword slash after another. The sinister devil's black body squirmed in the face of these sword slashes, and as it squirmed, sharp black claws began to materialize as it swiped at the flaming sword slashes with its bare hands. Boom, boom, boom. Flames exploded, charring the surrounding area black. A black figure leaped out from the flames, and it continued to attack Su Xiaolan with a violent and sinister aura, moving even faster than before. At the same time, the other 3 sinister devils had also reached them. Ji Yanling materialized white lightning from her sword as she battled against one of the sinister devils. Xiao Chou wielded a silver staff as he battled against another sinister devil. Both of them were powerful beings of the spirit-nurturing final stage, and they were the most powerful in Lin's team, but they were still having a hard time fighting them. Not only were the sinister devils vicious and unpredictable attacks, but they also had the effect of disrupting one's mental state. Another sinister devil pounced toward Lin, but Lin yelled at Dabai, "Hurry up and go help Su Xiaolan." Countless spikes suddenly erupted from the sinister devil battling Su Xiaolan, making it look like a porcupine. Then, the spikes abruptly elongated, and they stabbed towards Su Xiaolan with powerful penetrative force. Su Xiaolan's expression shifted, and she flapped her flaming wings as she retreated quickly. However, the spikes were like countless sharp swords, and their speed was much faster than her full speed. Just at this critical moment, a fierce air cannon flashed past, blasting the evil spirit back. "Dabai, why are you here? Quickly go and help Lin." Su Xiaolan's expression changed when she saw Dabai. "Big brother, and was the one who asked me to help you, woof." Dabai said honestly. Su Xiaolan, at this moment, Lin was fighting a nefarious devil alone. Only now did he realize how terrifying this nefarious devil was. It had the ability to change its appearance continuously, its strange movement technique, and its unstoppable mental attack. If one was distracted for even a moment, the fatal attack would suddenly arrive. Just as everyone was firmly suppressed, another 4 nefarious devils pounced over. If these 4 demons really joined the battle, they would definitely not be able to hold on. Proud Frost sword slash. And Lin had no other choice but to use a Soul Formation Talisman. In an instant, a blue sword slash appeared from the talisman, and with an extremely terrifying power, it flashed past. The body of the nefarious devil that Lin was fighting was instantly sliced in half. It let out a shrill cry before finally disappearing on the spot. Success! However, the system did not send out a notification that he had successfully defeated the nefarious devil. Could it be that the nefarious devil that was defeated by relying on the power of others did not count? Without any time to think, he took out another talisman. Proud Frost sword slash. This time, he targeted 2 nefarious devils that were relatively close to him. This way, he could eliminate 2 of them with 1 talisman. Another sword slash that contained an extremely strong frost intent was released from the talisman. When the sword slashed toward the nefarious devil, even the movement of the nefarious devil was frozen by the frost intent. The bodies of the two nefarious devils were sliced in half again. The violent and twisted energy suffered a devastating blow and completely dissipated between heaven and earth. This talisman was very useful, but Enlin's heart ached to use it. The talismans given by the Kunlun immortal sect leader Spirit Child Sure had already been used up. With a pained expression, he took out the evil vanquishing talismans given by the sect leader of Dragon Tiger sect, Heavenly Teacher Zhang. Trash nefarious devil, I'll let you taste the power of the soul-vanquishing lightning technique. Enlin knew that he had to use these life-saving trump cards, so he started flexing to his heart's content. An evil vanquishing talisman was activated, and blue lightning shot out. This terrifying power of pure yang struck the nefarious devil and tore through the darkness like a flash of light. With a loud boom, the nefarious devil disappeared without even a wail. So powerful. The power of this evil vanquishing talisman seems to be much stronger than the sword talismans from before. Enlin's mind raced, and he used another evil vanquishing talisman to eliminate the last nefarious devil that had just entered the battlefield. There were only 3 nefarious devils left in the battle. Enlin held the last evil vanquishing talisman in his hand and entered the battlefield with the evil slaying sword in his hand. Boom! A pillar of flames soared into the sky, and the nefarious devil within the pillar of flames was scorched by the terrifying heat. The nefarious devil rushed out of the pillar of flames toward Su Xiaolan with thick smoke billowing from its body. At this moment, a powerful wind pressure descended from the sky, acting directly on the nefarious devil's body, causing the rocky ground within a radius of 30 feet to cave in and crack open. The nefarious devil's movements were restricted. At this moment, a ring of wind appeared beneath Enlin's feet, and a pure white stream of wind enveloped his sword. He charged into the region of wind pressure, but the terrifying wind pressure didn't affect him in the slightest. Like flowing water, his sword slashed toward the nefarious devil at the speed of lightning. Whoosh! The nefarious devil was sliced in half, and it slowly collapsed to the ground. The twisted body of the nefarious devil that had collapsed to the ground began to shrink and dissipate. Ding dong! A system notification appeared. You have successfully defeated the nefarious devil. Enlin was elated. The next step was to absorb the aura of the nefarious devil. He looked toward the direction of the nefarious devil. However, that place was completely empty. There was no aura apart from air, let alone the aura of the nefarious devil. Then, he realized a very serious problem. What was the aura of the nefarious devil? How was he supposed to absorb it? With this question in mind, he and Su Xiaolan and the others worked together with Ji Yanling to kill the other sinister devil. Before the sinister devil dissipated, they grabbed onto its body. It was a jelly-like texture. At the same time, a large amount of negative emotions, despair, resentment, depravity, violence. These emotions poured into his mind like crazy, scaring him so much that his face turned pale and he retreated. The physical contact didn't make him feel like he was absorbing the devil chi at all. All he felt was that his spirit had suffered a serious attack. If touching wasn't the way to absorb the demon, then what was the way to absorb it? Enlin looked at the last nefarious spirit. Could it be the way to absorb it was to eat it? Looking at the twisted and wriggling appearance of the demon, as well as the heart-palpitating aura it emitted, it must not be delicious, for example. If you were given 100 million and asked to eat a caddy of feixiang, would you eat it? Of course it was a refusal. Just like that, Enlin and the others mercilessly killed the last sinister devil on the battlefield. Enlin had not used his last exorcism talisman yet. This was specially prepared for the sinister devils that hadn't joined the battle yet, but he didn't use it. Everyone else also turned their eyes forward with confusion on their faces. There, 4 sinister devils stood silently on the spot. There were a total of 12 sinister devils attacking them, but only 8 of them had actually attacked. But the four sinister devils in front of them were neither attacking nor running away. Instead, they were silently standing as beautiful, sinister devils. This was far too strange. Right at this moment, a shadow slowly moved toward them. This was a humanoid sinister devil with a single dark red eye on its head. The twisted and violent energy around it was extremely condensed, and its aura was as vast as the ocean. Its appearance was suffocating and suffocating. It was also holding a humanoid sinister devil in its hand, but this sinister devil's aura was extremely weak, and its energy was extremely unstable. Immediately afterward, it tossed the sinister devil onto the ground with a mocking expression in its red eye. And Lin was shocked upon seeing this. This sinister devil was clearly different from the previous sinister devils. It had already broken free from the chaotic distortion of its body, and Lin had seen the relevant information before. This type of sinister devil was at least at the soul formation stage, and the sinister devil lying on the ground looked like it was about to die. Could it be that it was a traitor among them? Chapter 151. The current situation was even more dire than when they were surrounded by 12 sinister devils. This was because there was a sinister devil here that was as powerful as a soul formation stage cultivator. No, to be more accurate, there were two of them. The sinister devil on the ground was also in human form. What do we do, Run? Su Xiaolan asked in a low voice, and Lin smiled bitterly. Can't you see that the big boss is already locked onto us? He'll probably attack us as soon as we move. We won't be able to outrun a soul formation stage cultivator. You guys deal with the other four sinister devils. I'll deal with the humanoid sinister devil. And Lin pulled out a few talismans as he spoke to the people around him. Su Xiaolan looked at Lin with a hint of concern on her face. But she didn't say anything because she knew this was the best arrangement. An evil warding talisman created by Heavenly Master Zhang, 4 offensive talismans created by Taoist Umo, and 3 defensive talismans created by Taoist Priest Suyun. These were all the trump cards Lin had up his sleeves. He had to kill this humanoid sinister devil before he ran out of trump cards. The crimson-eyed sinister devil turned its gaze toward Lin, then stared at the talismans in his hand with a thoughtful expression. The other 4 sinister devils seemed to have received some kind of command, and they abruptly pounced toward Lin. Lightning manipulation technique of the divine sword. Ji Yinling's white robe fluttered in the wind as white lightning revolved around her long sword, which she slashed toward the 4 sinister devils. The sinister devils seemed to have a natural fear of this type of lightning, and the 4 sinister devils instinctively scattered in all directions as the powerful lightning fell upon them. Su Xiaolan, Xiao Chou, and Dabai took this opportunity to immediately engage the scattered sinister devils. The crimson-eyed sinister devil's aura was vast and distant as it stared at Lin with its crimson eyes. Its eyes were filled with bloodlust and violence, and they were imbued with a special demonic power that made Lin feel as if he had suddenly been plunged into a sea of blood and corpses, plunging him into a boundless sea of blood and despair. While Lin was in a daze, the crimson-eyed sinister devil made its move. With a single step, it broke through the sound barrier and appeared in front of him in an instant. Almost at the same time, Lin's eyes turned snow-white. Rings of wind wrapped around his feet as he quickly retreated. In the time it took to advance and retreat, the talisman had already been activated, and the distance between Lin and the crimson-eyed sinister devil was very close. Soul-breaking lightning technique. The lightning, which was imbued with the power of extreme yang, was like a blue lightning sword as it abruptly struck one of the scarlet-eyed sinister devil's weak points. Rumble. Lightning exploded, piercing through the chest of the scarlet-eyed sinister demon, who bore the brunt of the attack. The terrifying force of the explosion reduced the ground within a radius of 3 feet into dust. The evil spirit let out a muffled roar and took a few steps back. Its pitch-black body became a little disorganized. He had heard it, but this degree of damage was still not enough, and Lin's talisman continued to shine brightly. Just then, a red beam of light shot out from the eyes of the scarlet-eyed sinister devil. This beam of light carried with it an aura of annihilation. Anything that came close to this beam of light would begin to corrode and rot. Mystic Ice Mirror. A defensive talisman was activated, and a white ice mirror appeared in front of Enlin, protecting his entire body. The beam of light struck the mystic ice mirror, and the ice mirror cracked open. However, the scarlet-eyed sinister devil's attack also dissipated as a result. In the next instant, the scarlet-eyed sinister devil appeared in front of Enlin again. Its pitch-black fist smashed down toward Enlin with unstoppable force. Anti-armor heavy rock. Another defensive talisman was activated, and a layer of golden rock materialized in the air. Rumble. A terrifying shockwave erupted from the fist, pulverizing the ground within a radius of 100 feet. Even the earth trembled slightly from the impact. At the same time, the scarlet-eyed sinister devil was forced back by an indescribably powerful counterforce. The immortal spell activated by this defensive talisman not only had a defensive effect, but it also had the ability to reflect physical damage. Enlin had been waiting for this exact moment when the scarlet-eyed sinister devil was forced back. Now was the time to decide life or death. 4 offensive talismans created by Taoist UMO floated in the air at the same time, each of them emitting a dazzling light. Wind Lotus Mountain Crushing. A massive lotus-shaped ball of air descended from the sky, crashing down upon the retreating scarlet-eyed sinister devil with the force of Mount Tai. The earth within a radius of 100 feet caved in from the fearsome wind pressure. The scarlet-eyed sinister devil half knelt onto the ground as if it had been severely wounded. Divine Punishment Heavenly Flames. A pillar of flames descended from the sky, and the heavenly flames became even more ferocious under the effect of the wind pressure. Monstrous flames engulfed the scarlet-eyed, sinister devil and melted the earth below. 9 Flashing Sun Sword. 9 white swords imbued with absolute killing intent transformed into 9 streaks of white light that pierced through the heavenly flames of the scarlet-eyed, sinister devil. Demon Slaying Lightning Spear. This was Enlin's final attack. The power of lightning had an additional lethal effect on sinister devils, so he saved this attack for the very last moment, when the scarlet-eyed sinister devil was at its weakest. Lightning tore through the earth like the cries of tens of thousands of birds. With the help of Enlin's lightning manipulation technique, the demon-slaying lightning spear pierced through the sinister devil's head with unerring accuracy. Rumble. The power of the lightning spear was completely unleashed, forming a gigantic ball of lightning that engulfed everything in its path. The wind stopped, the flames were extinguished, and the lightning also began to dissipate. Enlin gripped his evil-slaying sword in one hand and a yellow talisman in the other. This was a defensive-type talisman, and it was the only soul formation talisman he had left. After suffering such a ferocious attack, a crater several hundred feet wide appeared on the ground. Xiao Qiu was going to use his golden eye ability as he fought. Thus, the light here was dim, and the smoke and dust permeating the air made it impossible for Enlin to see what was going on in the center of the crater. He couldn't be sure if the scarlet-eyed sinister devil was dead or not. He slowly walked toward the crater, ready to activate his talisman at a moment's notice. Right at this moment, he sensed the aura of death sweeping toward him. Golden Buddha Protector. He activated his defensive talisman without hesitation. A twisted black figure charged toward Enlin with resentment and ruthlessness radiating from it. One of its arms had already disappeared, the crimson eye on its head had been shattered, and its solid body had also become extremely distorted. It was clearly on the brink of death, but its aura was even more vast and terrifying than before. A golden protective barrier appeared in front of Enlin. Countless scriptures appeared on the surface of the barrier, each of which was imbued with a vast Buddhist might. The arm of the approaching scarlet-eyed sinister devil suddenly trembled violently, transforming into a black longsword that glowed with a frosty light. It stabbed toward the golden barrier. Kacha! A hole was punctured in the barrier, and the black sword pierced through Enlin's body. Almost at the same time, Excruciating pain and boundless mental corruption began to corrode his body in a frenzy. This was an indescribable pain. In that instant, Lin felt as if his mind had gone completely blank, and the only thing he could feel was pain and despair. Boundless, twisted emotions crashed into his entire body, and he felt as if his entire body was about to explode. He began to howl in agony. Lin! Su Xiaolan's eyes flashed with panic at the sight of Lin howling in pain, and she immediately charged toward Lin. But right at this moment, a dazzling bolt of white lightning struck the scarlet-eyed, sinister devil. Boom! The lightning knocked the scarlet-eyed, sinister devil back a few steps, and the black longsword formed from the scarlet-eyed, sinister devil's body was also pulled out. And Lin knelt to the ground in exhaustion, and his body trembled uncontrollably. A peculiar power filled with despair was trying to corrupt him, guiding him to become a sinister devil. But at the same time, his pocket began to glow with a pure golden light, and the pure power of Yang began to flow into his body, fighting back against the peculiar power. Ji Yanling rushed to Lin's side, and she gritted her teeth with a determined expression on her face. The sinister devil that had been fighting with her earlier also chased after them, but it was blocked by Xiao Cho with all his might. An extremely terrifying power erupted from the scarlet-eyed sinister devil's body, and its black longsword slashed through the air in a lethal trajectory. If things continued like this, everyone's lives would be forfeit here. 9-segment lightning. Ji Yanling's expression was unfazed, and she made a series of hand seals, and lightning fell from the sky. But the scarlet-eyed, sinister devil's movement technique was already too fast for her to follow. Bolts of lightning fell one after another, puncturing the ground below them, but none of them struck the figure that was leaping through the air. In the blink of an eye, the scarlet-eyed, sinister devil was right in front of her, and its longsword transformed into a black line as it stabbed toward her heart. Ji Yanling had no chance of evading such a terrifying speed. Ji Yanling's eyes were filled with indignation. She still hadn't found that person, and she didn't want things to end like this. Whoosh! A black figure appeared in front of Ji Yanling. The long sword pierced through his body, but it was gripped tightly by his hands, and it was unable to advance any further. He was facing Ji Yanling, and his body trembled uncontrollably as he screamed in agony. Ji Yanling's pupils contracted slightly as she stared blankly at the scene unfolding before her. Not only her, but even Lin, Su Xiaolan, and the others also stared in disbelief at the scene unfolding before their eyes. Because the person who had blocked the sword for Ji Yanling was the sinister devil that had collapsed weakly to the ground. Chapter 152. The crimson-eyed sinister devil's twisted head began to turn violent and chaotic. A peculiar ripple suddenly emanated from its black sword, blasting a gaping hole into the chest of the sinister devil, blocking its path. The sinister devil let out another blood-curdling screech as its body plummeted forward, knocking the dazed Ji Yanling to the ground. Who are you? Ji Yanling stared blankly at the sinister devil in front of her as her voice began to tremble. The sinister devil extended its jet-black hand toward Ji Yanling's neck and gently lifted the necklace. The light blue gemstone on the necklace was so beautiful that it glowed faintly. The sinister devil held the gemstone in its hand. The crimson-eyed sinister devil's long sword pierced through the air, aiming for the sinister devil's head. Boom! A dazzling blue barrier of light suddenly appeared in the air, enshrouding Ji Yanling and the others. The long sword struck the blue barrier of light, but the extremely powerful attack was unable to shake it in the slightest. This is the enchantment barrier of the blue dream crystal. Ji Yanling stared at the sinister devil in front of her, unable to hold back the tears in her eyes. Wang Lu, is that you? The blue dream crystal was Wang Lu's family heirloom. Only his power could activate the enchantment barrier of the blue dream crystal. That's right, only he could activate it. The sinister devil hissed as it looked at the two streams of tears flowing down the girl's face. It could no longer speak, and the only thing it could make was this piercing sound. Then it lowered its head. A series of images surfaced in its mind. A man in a gray robe and a woman in a flowing white dress appeared at the edge of the abyss of evil. The man had an imposing appearance, while the woman was as beautiful as the moon, like a lotus fairy. In the eyes of outsiders, they were a match made in heaven. Xiaoyan, this mission is extremely dangerous. Don't let your guard down. The man cautioned. Wang Lu, as long as I stay by your side, with a soul formation stage mighty figure like you protecting me, what do I have to fear? Ji Yinling clung onto Wang Lu's arm with a smile on her face. Wang Lu blushed slightly. Then you have to stick close to me. Don't leave me. An accident occurred while they were retrieving the sacred black flame lotus. The abyssal demons rioted, and several powerful beasts with vast auras appeared, forcing the two of them into a desperate situation. At this moment, Wang Lu took out the blue dream crystal necklace and handed it to Ji Yinling. Take this and run. This blue dream gem is for you to use to protect yourself. I can't use it. Ji Yinling pushed the necklace away. With the necklace on Wang Lu's body, it could guarantee his safety. However, Wang Lu personally put the necklace on Ji Yinling's neck and spoke in a gentle voice. Silly, I'll only be able to sense your location after the blue dream crystal is on you. If the blue dream crystal's light disappears, then don't wait for me. A strong gust of wind pushed Ji Yinling into the distance. Wang Lu turned around, and his whole body burst out with a powerful force, leading the several deity stage strange beasts that were chasing him away. In the abyss of endless darkness, covered in blood, Wang Lu walked forward step by step, dragging a long trail of blood behind him. One of his arms had already been destroyed, but he still managed to escape from the pursuit of several soul formation stage mutant beasts. The next step was to search for the blue dream crystal's aura and find Little Yin. He wasn't in a good state at the moment, so he had to leave this perilous abyss of evil with Little Yin as soon as possible. Just as he was about to fly away on his sword, an inky black blade appeared out of nowhere and pierced through his chest. Wang Lu fell to his knees. Excruciating pain was accompanied by boundless mental corruption, which eroded his body. The profound and bizarre power caused his body to slowly dissipate. Boundless negative emotions roared in his mind, driving him into madness, depravity, and finally leading him to transform into a sinister devil. No, I can't die like this. Little Yin is still waiting for me. I can't die like this. His strong will resisted the boundless mental corruption, but in the end, he still completely fell into darkness. After an unknown period of time, Wang Lu regained consciousness. What's happening to my body? He stared blankly at his twisted, inky black body as he spoke in shock. However, all that came out of his mouth was an ear-piercing hissing sound. That day, he completely broke down. He discovered that he had become a sinister devil. Despair, depravity, violence, slaughter. He wandered around the abyss of evil, gradually losing himself as he did what sinister devils were supposed to do. Wang Lu, are you there? A familiar voice reverberated in the boundless darkness of the abyss. He heard that voice, the voice that haunted his dreams. Something that had been sealed away was lifted up again. His rationality was also awakened by this voice. The chaos, distortion, and despair slowly began to dissipate. Weak and frail, she paced back and forth in the darkness, searching nonstop. He, who had fallen into depravity, hid in the darkness, silently protecting the beautiful figure that he couldn't let go of. At least, he had to protect her until the day she decided to give up. I'll help you deal with the terrifying mutant beasts. I'll help you eliminate the sinister devils that lurk in the shadows, waiting for an opportunity to strike. Wang Lu, are you there? In this eternally dark space, her calls never stopped. How many days had it been? Wang Lu really didn't know how many days had passed, but he knew how many times Ji Yinling had called out his name. In the darkness, whenever Ji Yinling felt like she was about to collapse, she would pull out the blue dream crystal and stare at its faint glow as she murmured to herself, Wang Lu, I know you're not dead. You must still be waiting for me somewhere. Idiot, I've always been by your side, in the darkness, Wang Lu silently stared at the lonely figure. He actually had another choice. However, he didn't dare to make that choice, because he was afraid that Ji Yinling would make the same choice as him. Finally, one day, Ji Yinling encountered a group of people who were here to hunt sinister devils. They definitely didn't expect that a sinister devil by the name of Wang Lu would be right beside them. Ji Yinling explained to them in an experienced manner. There were very few sinister devils here. She hadn't encountered a single one in over a year. Wang Lu stood silently to the side. Idiot, you haven't encountered any sinister devils because I've killed all the sinister devils that try to violate you. After that, they were chased by 2 giant dragons. Should they attack? No, they could still handle it. However, the direction in which you guys fled and made me a little worried. Another sinister devil tried to attack you, but I appeared behind it and used my hand as a blade to decapitate it. The sinister devil's killing intent was transmitted to you, but you said in an experienced manner that this was the wind of the abyss. Idiot, this is killing intent. I have to say, you're quite good at making up terms and explaining yourself. Just as Wang Lu was signed to himself, an extremely powerful being appeared. I've been looking for you for a long time, traitor. A voice traveled toward him like the wind of the abyss. You can talk to me? Wang Lu was shocked. Why not? We're the same kind. You've killed so many of my sinister devils for this woman. What do you think I should do with you? A pair of crimson eyes appeared in the darkness as the sinister devil slowly materialized with a monstrous aura. Wang Lu was no match for it, and his body was on the verge of collapse. The sinister devil brought him onto the battlefield so that he could see with his own eyes what would happen to the woman he was protecting. He lay on the ground and saw Ji Yinling's determined figure in battle, as well as her unwillingness to give up after being pushed into a corner. At least let me protect you one last time. Wang Lu roared in rage, and his body transformed into a black shadow as he shielded Ji Yinling. A hole was blasted into his chest, but fortunately, he managed to activate the Blue Dream Crystal enchantment barrier at the last moment. Wang Lu, is that you? Although this was a question, the woman's limpid eyes were already filled with tears. It's me, Xiaoyan. The sinister devil let out a sharp and hoarse cry, but it was impossible to make out any words. Ji Yinling reached out to caress its pitch-black face and said in a gentle voice, Wang Lu, I knew it was you. Let's go home together. Go home? If I go home like this, my in-laws will definitely not recognize me as their son-in-law. But it feels really good to be recognized by you. The pitch-black body gradually dissipated, and its aura grew weaker and weaker. Wang Lu, wake up, I beg you. Wang Lu, don't leave me. No matter what you become, don't leave me. Wang Lu, Wang Lu. Her voice grew softer and softer. 899,125 times. 899,126 times. During his long period of protection, Wang Lu had developed a small hobby, which was to secretly note down the number of times Ji Yinling called out his name in the abyss of evil to see how long she could persist. She was still persisting. If he told her this number, she probably wouldn't even believe it herself. It's a pity that I'm about to leave. I won't be able to tell you about this anymore. As Ji Yinling called out to him, the pitch-black body completely dissipated into specks of black light, disappearing with the wind as she called out, Wang Lu. Chapter 153. After Wang Lu left, Ji Yinling sobbed her heart out. She had always been a strong person, never shedding a single tear no matter what danger or loneliness she faced, but now she was sobbing her heart out. After Wang Lu's body disappeared, a wisp of black energy floated into Enlin's body. Enlin sensed this and didn't reject the wisp of black energy. After accepting the wisp of demonic energy, his mind wasn't tainted by boundless negative emotions. Instead, it was extremely excited. Every single cell in his body was activated, and everything in the world became clear and slow. Ding dong. Demonic energy successfully absorbed, commencing origin energy of the netherworld inheritance. Boom! Terrifying information began to flow into Enlin's mind. Techniques, cultivation methods, enlightenment, enlightenment of the netherworld. He once again felt like his head was about to explode, but his thoughts were extremely clear and active. So that's how it is. And Lin stood up and stood in front of Ji Yanling, a faint black energy exuding from his body. Intermediate rank god of war spell, origin energy of the netherworld. This technique could unleash all the potential in one's body for a short period of time. However, this technique had side effects, and the longer it was used, the more severe the side effects would be. Once the origin energy of the netherworld was used, it could result in exhaustion for a few days, damage to the Tao Foundation, or even death. Without the support of Wang Lu's power, the enchantment barrier of the blue dream crystal began to shatter. However, the moment it shattered, a wave of residual energy turned the blue fragments into sharp blades that shot toward the crimson-eyed, nefarious devil. This was the last bit of power that Wang Lu had left in this world, and each blade was imbued with terrifying power. The sinister devil was caught off guard and was pierced by the blue blades, causing it to wail in pain. At this moment, Lin's aura skyrocketed. Spirit nurturing intermediate stage, spirit nurturing final stage. A vast and powerful aura soared into the sky, and a projection of a black tiger appeared on the evil-slaying sword. A monstrous might of a monarch burst forth, and at the same time, the surrounding space seemed to be enveloped by a layer of black shadow. Second technique, Shadow Tiger. And Lin sprang into action. His body elongated like a shadow, elongating into a black shadow. His body emerged from the black shadow and appeared eerily in front of the sinister devil. His long sword slashed down with a terrifying might. The scarlet-eyed sinister demon, who had just been heavily injured, was unable to dodge this strange and powerful attack. It could only raise its hand to block in front of itself. The sword fell without a sound, but the shadow of the sword extended for thousands of feet. It tore apart the scarlet-eyed sinister devil's arms, shattered its scarlet eyes, and cut its pitch-black body in half. In the end, it tore a deep, dark fissure in the ground. The scarlet-eyed, sinister demon collapsed, its shattered body slowly dissipating. The black chi around in Lin's body also began to dissipate. After using the origin energy of the netherworld for several seconds and unleashing the second technique of the 6 strikes of the war god, his entire body was in excruciating pain, and he fell to his knees as he panted heavily. However, the battle was not over yet. There were 4 sinister devils. The clown was holding off 2 on his own, while Su Xiaolan and Dabai were fighting 1 each. Both of them were at a disadvantage, and they were only barely able to hold their own. Master, let Xiao Hong fight as well. And Lin's pocket trembled. And Lin was struggling to even stand, and he was a little dazed by Xiao Hong's words. Didn't you say that you can't use your power in this dark place? Also, you were trying your best to defend me from the scarlet-eyed sinister demon. Are you sure it's okay? It's fine. Xiao Hong suddenly thought of a way to release all of the photosynthesis energy in one go. A sweet voice sounded from the pocket again. And Lin, even though he didn't know what Xiao Hong meant by releasing all of the photosynthesis energy in one go, he was definitely not going to turn down the chance to help Su Xiaolan and the others. Thus, Xiao Hong jumped out of the pocket and transformed back into a petite young woman. She was still wearing a red dress, and there was a solemn expression on her beautiful face. Let me destroy you in the name of the sun. Xiao Hong leaped into the air and yelled in her sweet voice. Instantly, a dazzling light erupted from her body. The golden light transformed into a wave of light imbued with the power of pure yang, which hurtled toward the 4 sinister devils on the battlefield. Boom, boom, boom. This kind of attack was like a carpet bombing that was completely unavoidable. The 4 sinister devils began to wail in agony as they were struck by this light. The clown took advantage of this opportunity and swung his silver staff toward the 2 sinister devils in front of him with black flames that could engulf all things. Su Xiaolan spread open her flaming wings and slashed her long sword toward the sinister devils in front of her. Dabai extended his sharp claws and tore the sinister devils apart with his bare hands. The four sinister devils collapsed under everyone's ferocious attacks, and their twisted bodies began to slowly dissipate. Xiao Hong's destroy you in the name of the sun technique was like a stroke of genius, and it instantly turned the tide of the battle. That's impressive, my flower. Other plants use photosynthesis to synthesize nutrients, but you can use photosynthesis to unleash a wave of light attack. And Lin's eyes widened as he lavished praise on Xiao Hong. There was no hint of triumph on Xiao Hong's face as she rubbed her eyes and yawned. Light flashed, and she transformed back into a cute little red flower before jumping back into Lin's pocket. Master, the energy stored through photosynthesis has all been used up. Xiao Hong is going to hibernate for a while. Don't forget to take her out to bask in the sun every day. And Lin nodded solemnly. It was just basking in the sun. Who didn't know how to take care of flowers? The battle finally came to an end. The clown, Dabai, and Su Xiaolan were all injured to varying degrees. And Lin's abdomen was also severely wounded, and his aura was extremely feeble. He probably didn't even have the strength to use the most basic immortal spells, let alone swordkinesis flight. But the one who had sustained the most injuries was Ji Yanling. She slumped to the ground in a daze, and her once bright eyes had lost all of their luster. Her beautiful long hair fell in a disheveled mess, and she still held the blue dream gem in her hands. However, the light from the gem had completely disappeared, and it had become a lifeless rock. Su Xiaolan and the others stood rooted to the spot, unsure of what to say to comfort her. There was something very wrong with Ji Yanling's condition. She had once been a strong and independent woman, but now it was as if she had lost all of her support, and there was only a deathly stillness in her eyes. And Lin walked over to her. He had already understood the whole story, and he spoke in a gentle voice. Ms. Ji Yanling, these are some of Wang Lu's memories that he left in my body. I'll give them to you. Ji Yanling shuddered at his words, and she raised her head to reveal 2 streaks of tears on her face. And Lin sighed lightly, and a white light appeared on his finger as he tapped it toward her glabella. Then, a series of scenes from the past began to surface in Ji Yanling's mind. In the abyss of evil, Wang Lu's madness and depravity when he became a sinister devil, and his unwavering protection of Ji Yanling when he saw her, as well as his occasional murmurs to himself. Finally, the memories came to an end, and a familiar and gentle voice suddenly appeared in her mind. Little Yin, live on. It was just a very ordinary sentence, but Ji Yanling sobbed uncontrollably again. She finally understood that she wasn't alone when she wandered the dark abyss. Wang Lu had always been by her side. Wang Lu, I'll live on. I won't let your protection during this period of time go to waste. Ji Yanling wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes, and then clutched the dull gem tightly in her palm. As if she had thought of something, a sweet smile appeared on her face. It's already the 899,127 times. Chapter 154. Ji Yanling's condition had recovered slightly, and Lin and the others also breathed a sigh of relief. And Lin had already successfully cultivated the origin energy of the Netherworld, and Ji Yanling was planning to return to the One Valley Immortal Sect. It was time to leave this accursed place, but they didn't know if the 2 dragons were still around the crack. After some discussion, everyone decided to find another passageway to leave this abyss. At this moment, somewhere in the abyss of evil, there was a raging fire here, and a huge green spider was being roasted over the fire. Green juices seeped out of its body, and a strange odor wafted from the scorching flames. The 2 giant black dragons flipped the green spider over and over again. Both of them had silent expressions. All of a sudden, the female dragon kicked the male dragon again. Boom! The male dragon was sent flying by the kick, and his body caved in as he crashed into a rock wall. Mother of my child, what are you doing now? The male dragon howled in grief. I get angry just looking at you. You could have eaten some powerful and delicious human cultivators. It's all your fault. You can't even catch a few human cultivators. What kind of male dragon are you? The female dragon glowered at the male dragon, and she gritted her teeth in anger at the thought of how she had fallen to the point where she had to eat trash food like spiders. The male dragon wore an aggrieved expression. The female dragon was at the soul formation stage, Cultivator. If the female dragon wasn't in a hurry to stab his *s and could have chased after them herself, then it would have been a piece of cake. But she just had to make him do it. Who was to blame? However, the male dragon didn't dare to voice his anger. His wife was more powerful than he was. It wasn't that he didn't retaliate, but the countless scars on his *s were a constant reminder to him that he wouldn't have dragon power if he didn't have power. The male dragon made his way over to the raging fire with heavy footsteps, and he picked up a spider leg before placing it into his mouth and chewing on it. It tasted sour, and there was a hint of a fishy smell to it, which he couldn't get rid of no matter how he roasted it. The only good thing about it was that it was high in protein. Right at this moment, the female dragon's eyes narrowed, and a terrifying aura erupted from her body. The male dragon was given a fright and leaped back, thinking that the female dragon was going to use force on him again. The female dragon, however, turned her gaze elsewhere. My dragon sense detected a group of human cultivators flying into the sky from 2.5 kilometers away. As she spoke, the female dragon turned her gaze to the male dragon and said coldly, "If you can't catch them, you won't be having dinner tonight." The male dragon was shocked. "Yes, my dear wife." With that, the male dragon flapped his wings and flew in the direction indicated by the female dragon. He muttered to himself, "The female dragon is so powerful, but she's not doing anything. What a strange temper." The mother dragon touched her slightly bulging abdomen and thought to herself, "Father of the child, it's not that I don't want to do it, but it's really inconvenient for me to do vigorous exercise. When the time comes, I'll definitely give you a surprise." Somewhere in the abyss of evil, Enlin and the others were flying up into the sky. Enlin weakly lay on top of Dubai like a dead fish, unable to exert even the slightest bit of strength. At this moment, the clown suddenly looked behind him. "There's an extremely powerful aura approaching us." "Then why aren't you running, Wolf?" Dubai flew even faster. Boom! Purple flames soared into the sky and pounced toward Enlin. Everyone's hearts jolted at the sight of this familiar flame. They had just been through a fierce battle and had yet to fully recover from their injuries. How were they supposed to survive against a half-step soul formation stage male dragon and a soul formation stage female dragon? "I can't sense the female dragon's aura. It should be the male dragon alone," Ji Yinling said. Everyone heaved a slight sigh of relief. Although they were in a perilous situation, it wasn't a hopeless situation. Lightning manipulation technique of divine sword. Ji Yinling wielded a bolt of white lightning toward the purple flames. White blaze slash. Su Xiaolan slashed out with a mighty sword intent. Heavy mist cannon. Dubai turned around and spat out a powerful blast of air from his mouth. "Go!" Enlin raised his hand and cheered. The clown, who was used to close combat, glared at the huge dragon in the distance and attacked with his appearance. The purple flames were once again vanquished by everyone's combined attacks. "Ha ha! Do you think you'll be fine just because you vanquished my flame attack? My goal was to force you to attack and then catch up to you." The huge black dragon laughed heartily as he broke through the purple flames and closed in on everyone. A domain of black spikes enveloped an area of several hundred feet in radius around the dragon, exuding an aura of death. "You guys go first." The clown roared and black flames erupted from his body as he charged toward the black dragon without any regard for his own safety. Dubai carried Enlin along the cliff and quickly flew upward, almost reaching the very top of the abyss. The spikes imbued with the aura of death were unable to stop the clown's advance. He was like a ball of black flames falling from the sky, piercing through the spikes. The spikes left countless bloody gashes on his body, but the silver metal staff in his hand swung down with even greater ferocity toward the black dragon's head. The male dragon didn't expect the clown to come up and was unable to evade in time, resulting in his head being struck. Boom! A terrifying shock wave swept through the surroundings, and the black dragon almost fainted from the immense force of the collision. The black flames that could engulf all things scorched the black dragon's head in a frenzy. Ow! The black dragon roared in pain and stopped in his tracks. The clown didn't continue fighting and immediately charged into the sky. In a real battle, he was no match for the black dragon. He was only able to gain a slight advantage earlier because he suddenly attacked with no regard for his own life. Seeing that the clown was trying to escape, the black dragon endured the pain and gave chase again. However, just as he was about to move, countless bolts of divine lightning struck his body and exploded. Ji Yanling was a cultivator of the spirit-nurturing final stage. Even a half-step soul formation stage male dragon couldn't ignore her full-force attack. The black dragon didn't dodge and took the full brunt of the attack. Its entire body was instantly charred black as it trembled. At this moment, Su Xiaolan used an immortal spell to summon a rain of flames again. The male dragon wanted to cry. How could these spirit-nurturing stage cultivators be so powerful? Did he come here to hunt or to seek a beating? Unbeknownst to him, if the female dragon wasn't present when they first met, they would have already engaged in battle. The male dragon dragged his wounded body and continued to chase after Su Xiaolan and the others. However, his speed and aura were no longer as powerful as before. Soon, the clown and the others also flew to the top of the abyss. The black dragon discovered that all of the cultivators had escaped from the abyss and didn't pursue them out of the abyss, as if it was wary of the outside world. It looked at Enlin and the others with extreme reluctance. It didn't pursue them, nor did it leave. Enlin also discovered this problem and turned to look at the black dragon. Then, he saw tears appear in the corners of the black dragon's eyes. Enlin, was it beaten to tears? No, that's clearly impossible. What was the reason? What was the reason that made it shed such bitter tears? Enlin stopped dog kinesis flight and looked at the black dragon silently. The black dragon discovered that a cultivator riding on a white dog was looking at it. Do you have food? Enlin, to buy. Get a bone? Enlin shook his head with a serious expression. He saw the black dragon constantly running around for the sake of his family, not backing down in the face of countless difficulties, taking on the burden of his own initiative. He saw the black dragon lowering his proud head for the sake of his family, taking the initiative to beg the enemy for help. He didn't know why, but he was touched. The black dragon was feeling extremely conflicted. Why did it ask for food from these cultivators? Perhaps it was because the cultivator riding on the dog had taken an extra glance at it when they were escaping. This gave it a feeling that this cultivator was a special existence that might be able to help it. If it couldn't bring anything back, not only would it not be able to eat spider meat, it might even be hung up and beaten by the female dragon. That kind of horror was something that couldn't be understood unless one experienced it for themselves. And Lin heaved a forlorn sigh before bringing out a gigantic unicorn from his storage ring. This is a unicorn eye obtained in the Myriad Mountain realm. It's huge and has delicious meat. You can have it. He tossed the unicorn toward the black dragon as he spoke. The black dragon was dumbstruck. It didn't think that a human cultivator would actually give it food. Tears welled up in its eyes as it held the unicorn in its mouth. I was hunting you down just now, but you saved me from danger. I'm not a F** king dragon. A gratified smile appeared on Lin's face as he listened to the black dragon's confession. May I ask for your down name, my benefactor? The black dragon asked with a grateful expression. Enlin. My name is Enlin. The black dragon was grateful. So if it's Enlin, my benefactor, I don't have anything with me right now, so I'm unable to repay your kindness. However, if my child's mother gives birth to a child, I'll definitely name him Enlin to commemorate my benefactor's kindness to me. The naming of a dragon was an extremely solemn event, and it was quite clear that the black dragon was extremely grateful toward Enlin. PFFF. The Bai almost spat out his fangs from anger. Ha! Big brother and ha! Su Xiaolan and the others couldn't help but chuckle upon hearing the black dragon's words. And Lin's lips twitched, and he flew away from the abyss of evil with a dark expression despite the black dragon's attempts to persuade him to stay. Chapter 155. Ji Yinling bade farewell to Enlin and the others before flying back to the One Valley Immortal Sect on her own. Enlin lay limply on Dabai's back, while Su Xiaolan flew over to Enlin's side with a gossipy expression, asking him what kind of memory had helped Ji Yinling recover. Ji Yinling had been by her side before, so she was too embarrassed to ask, but now that she had left, there was nothing that could stop Su Xiaolan's curiosity. Enlin heaved a light sigh and briefly recounted Wang Lu's transformation into a sinister devil to protect Ji Yinling. Su Xiaolan's face was filled with melancholy after hearing this, and she sighed softly. "This is love, Enlin." At this moment, Qing Hua's face appeared in Dabai's mind. A certain white fox's face appeared in Xiao Chao's mind, and Wang Lu's face appeared in Enlin's mind. "Enlin, where are you going next?" Su Xiaolan asked after a moment of contemplation. "I'm going to the 10,000 Spirits Immortal Sect to visit Big Brother Cheng first," Enlin replied after a moment of thought. Su Xiaolan nodded. "I won't be going to the 10,000 Spirits Immortal Sect. I'm going back to my sect first." The 10,000 Spirits Immortal Sect and the Vermilion Bird Sect were both part of the 4 super immortal sects of the Kingdom of the Nine States, and they didn't interact much other than during Dao discussion competitions. As such, she wasn't very interested in the 10,000 Spirits Immortal Sect. Although it would be nice to see the handsome Xianyuan Cheng, she would be able to see him once school started, so there was no rush. Everyone arrived at the capital city of the Heavenly River State. Su Xiaolan used the teleportation spell formation to return to the Baihua State, while Enlin and the others teleported to the Wind Plain State. The Wind Plain State was located at the northernmost point of the Kingdom of the Nine States, and it bordered the holy glacial lands of the Taichu continent. Battles broke out here all year round, and the Celestial Court stationed soldiers to guard the border. The other sects of the Kingdom of the Nine States would also participate in the defense of the Wind Plain State. Among these sects, the 10,000 Spirits Immortal Sect was the main force in resisting the invasion of the Snow Maidens. In the Wind Plain Province's teleportation square, Enlin's figure began to appear. "Phew, it's a bit cold." A gust of cold wind blew in his face, causing him to involuntarily shrink his body. Woof! The prefectural city is located in the northern part of the Wind Plain State, so it's very close to the holy glacial lands. "It's normal for the temperature to be lower here," Dabai said as he shook his body. After a period of recuperation, Enlin could already take care of himself. However, he still liked to lie on Dabai's back because it was too comfortable and warm. He looked around. Even though the environment here was rather cold, the people of the Wind Plain province were not clothed tightly. Most of the people only wore ordinary robes, and some of the women even wore sleeveless dresses that exposed their slender, snow-white arms. Perhaps this was a trend here. Enlin looked around as he rode on Dabai. Actually, going to different places and experiencing different cultures was one of the joys of his vacation. Xiao Chou had already transformed into a little monkey, and he sat on Enlin's shoulder to recover from his injuries. He had sustained quite a few injuries in his battle with the Black Dragon. After swallowing a vitality replenishing pill that Enlin had given him, he didn't want to move at all. His flashy, huge dog steed and his adorably ugly little monkey always attracted a lot of attention. Just as he was strolling leisurely, an old woman with a head of white hair slowly walked over. She was very close to Dabai when she suddenly fell to the ground. "Ow!" The old woman yelled loudly. "It hurts, help!" Her cries of pain instantly attracted the attention of many passers-by. Enlin, at this moment, a little girl ran over and wailed loudly. "Grandma, what's wrong? Don't die." She turned to Enlin as she spoke with grief and indignation. "Why did you knock over my grandma? She's already 165 years old. You're going to kill her." "Wah!" The little girl began to wail loudly, and more passers-by gathered to watch. All of them were pointing at Enlin. Some people even began to whisper among themselves, saying things like, "So what if you're rich? Do you think you can bully others just because you're riding on a precious dog?" Dabai was dumbstruck. This was the first time he had encountered such a situation. He didn't even bump into the old woman. And Lin's expression also shifted. Never would he have thought that he would encounter a scammer in the cultivation world. Could this be a trend? However, he soon discovered that the pain on the old woman's face didn't seem to be feigned. She could pretend to be in pain and discomfort, but it was very difficult to act as if her body was trembling in pain and her breathing was erratic. Divine inspection technique. His eyes turned snowy white, and he scanned the old woman's condition. At this moment, the little girl continued to wail, and even her eyes were red and swollen. "You knocked over my grandma, so you must pay for my grandma's treatment. You must pay me 200 spirit stones." The surrounding crowd was also affected by this atmosphere. The old woman was moaning in pain on the ground, and the little girl was wailing on the ground. What a tragic scene. As the culprit of this incident, he had to pay. Pay. The crowd roared angrily and exerted pressure on Enlin. Enlin blinked and asked gently, "Is 200 spirit stones enough? Do you want more?" The little girl seemed to have anticipated Enlin's answer, and she immediately yelled, "I can't go any lower. 200 spirit stones, that's the final price." Huh? However, in the next second, she finally came to her senses after hearing Enlin's words. Her little face was dazed, and she rubbed her ears as if she had misheard. "Are you sure you don't want more? Your illness might be a little serious." Enlin wore a concerned expression. He jumped down from Debai's body and walked over to the old woman to help her up. The old woman was also dazed to the spot at the sight of this gentle and calm young man. Enlin squatted down and rubbed the little girl's little head. He retrieved a bag of spirit stones from his storage ring and said in a gentle voice, "Here are 500 spirit stones. Take them to treat your grandma's illness." A warm smile appeared on his face as he spoke, and it was as if the entire winter had melted. The little girl held the bag of spirit stones in a daze. She didn't know what to say, and the guilt in her heart surged. After a long while, she finally came to her senses, and she spoke in a trembling voice. "Thank you, big brother. I will definitely pay you back. I was actually lying to." Before she could finish her sentence, she was drowned out by Lin's loud reprimand of Dabai. "Dabai, be careful next time, and don't knock into the old woman again." Dabai continued to wear a dumbfounded expression, and there was even a hint of grievance on his face. The surrounding crowd all shut their mouths. What else could they say after seeing Lin's attitude? Others wanted 200 spirit stones for medical fees, but he actually gave 500 spirit stones. Furthermore, he was so gentle and considerate during the entire process. Nice. Instantly, cheers erupted from the crowd. There were even some open-minded girls who were captivated by his handsome and charming appearance, and they screamed loudly. And Lin leaped onto Debai's back and waved at the petite girl. "Little girl, take good care of your grandma." Tears flowed from the little girl's eyes as she nodded repeatedly. Out of all the people present, only she knew just how much effort this big brother in front of her had put in. Just like that, the man and the dog gradually walked away and disappeared into the afterglow of the setting sun. The little girl stared at that figure in a daze. To her, that person had already become her hero, and she would always remember him. Chapter 156. On the way, Debai's expression was gloomy. "I didn't bump into the old granny," he said in a muffled voice. "I know," and Lin nodded. Dabai was slightly taken aback. "Then why did you pay them 500 spirit stones?" And Lin chuckled. "Because they really do need this money. That old woman is already very ill. If we leave her like this, she might not even be able to last a year. Think about it. Why would such an old woman put on this show with such a young child? If it wasn't for the fact that life forced them into a corner, they would never do something like this without their dignity. I'm guessing they have no one in their family that they can rely on. If I don't pay the old granny and she dies a year later, what will happen to the little girl? How will a child like her survive in this world?" Dabai fell into deep thought after hearing Lin's words. "So, big brother, and you choose to be the good guy?" And Lin nodded. "Even if my guess is wrong, if I'm right, then I'll be doing them a great favor. I'm filthy rich, and now a few hundred spirit stones are nothing to me." Dabai was completely convinced. Xiao Chou also patted Lin's shoulder in admiration. Good job, big brother. And thus, everyone continued on their journey to the 10,000 Spirits Immortal Sect. The 10,000 Spirits Immortal Sect was located in the southern part of the Wind Plain state. So when Lin and the others saw many adorable snow beasts and ate many delicious snow beasts on their way south. The food in the Wind Plain state was very spicy, which suited Lin's taste very well. Therefore, he had a great time eating at the restaurants these past few days. If he could, he would enjoy the Wind Plain state for a dozen years. Before they knew it, they had arrived at the 10,000 Spirits Immortal Sect. This was Lin's third super immortal sect. It had to be said, this sect gave him the best impression. Looking inside from the mountain gate, there were tall mountains and white clouds. The houses built against the mountains shone brightly under the sun, and there were many immortal caves hidden among them. From time to time, immortals would come out on their swords. "Hello, may I ask what business do you have here?" When a guard at the mountain gate saw Lin and the others, he cupped his fists and asked. He felt like the attitude of the 10,000 Spirits Immortal Sect guards was the best he had ever seen. "Hello, I'm Lin, a friend of Xinyuan Cheng. I'm here to visit him. Please inform him of my arrival." And Lin replied politely. Hearing Lin's words, the guard's expression changed, and he became even more respectful. "So you're a friend of young Lord Xinyuan? I'll report this right away." Soon, Xinyuan Cheng arrived on his sword. His white robe fluttered in the wind, his eyebrows were sharp, and his face was as clear as jade. He was so handsome that no one could look at him directly. "Student Lin, I didn't think you'd come to visit me." Xinyuan Cheng smiled warmly with joy on his face. The holidays were pretty boring anyway, so I decided to go sightseeing," and Lin replied with a smile. Xinyuan Cheng nodded. "That's great. Let me show you around the 10,000 Spirits Immortal Sect." Thus, Lin rode on to Bai and flew into the sect together with Xinyuan Cheng. The 10,000 Spirits Immortal Sect occupied an extremely large area, and the sect was built against the mountains. There were a total of 5 main peaks and 96 secondary peaks. The inner sect disciples cultivated on the main peak, while the outer sect disciples cultivated on the secondary peaks. And Lin stood on the Heavenly Dawn Peak and saw a 10,000 feet tall waterfall. Its roar was like the roar of thunder, and it was as if a white galaxy was descending upon the world. It created countless ripples at the foot of the mountain, and mist rose up from the ground. Under the illumination of the sun, the mist transformed into rainbow-colored droplets. There was also a bright rainbow wrapped around the middle of the mountain, like a colorful belt exclusive to the Heavenly Dawn Peak. It was both beautiful and breathtaking, and Lin didn't forget to take out his phone and take a selfie to show that he was here. After that, they landed on the Earth Spirit Peak. "We're here today to host the Inter-Sect Tournament for the younger generation of cultivators, which is held once every 4 years. Student Lin, are you interested in watching?" Xinyuan Cheng asked as he led the way. And Lin's eyes lit up upon hearing this. "Inter-sect tournament? What a familiar term." "Of course," he replied without hesitation. It was actually quite fun to watch others fight. It was like watching an exciting action movie. No, a Xianxia blockbuster. The venue for the Inter-sect tournament was extremely luxurious. It was like a gigantic stadium that could accommodate tens of thousands of cultivators at the same time. There were also a few large arenas below, where intense battles were taking place. How lively! And Lin couldn't help but exclaim in admiration at the sight of the tens of thousands of disciples cheering for him. Xinyuan Cheng smiled. "It's already the finals. All the disciples from the 5 main peaks and the 96 peaks are here to cheer for their idols." And Lin turned to Xinyuan Cheng. "Big brother Cheng, why aren't you participating in this tournament?" After a year of cultivation, Big Brother Cheng was already a cultivator of the spirit-nurturing intermediate stage. If he participated in the tournament, he would definitely be able to flex his way to the championship. Xinyuan Cheng shook his head. "I'm a member of the Celestial Court now, so I won't be participating in the Inter-Sect tournament." The Celestial Court was a super force to begin with. Students who studied at Xiaoxin United University were a part of the Celestial Court. After graduation, students could choose to remain in the celestial court. At that time, they would be a true member of the celestial court. Of course, students could also choose to return to their sect. However, if they returned to their sect, then the only connection they had with the celestial court would probably be a graduation certificate. And Lin felt that as the young master of the 10,000 Spirits Immortal sect, Xin Yuancheng would definitely return home and become a king after graduation. Sai, if that's the case, Su Qianyun and Su Xiaolan might also leave the celestial court after graduation, right? And Lin felt a wave of melancholy as he thought of this. Right at this moment, a ding-dong sound came from the system, giving him a fright. What's going on? He opened the system with a confused expression and found that the Special Missions tab was flashing. Detected that host is currently at the tournament, activating the following mission. Guessing which cultivator on the stage would be the champion of this competition. 1. Tang Xiuan. 2. Zhang Yan. 3. Lu Ren. 4. Kuang Ri. Mission success. Reward of 30 vital stones. Mission failure. 10 vital stones will be deducted from the storage ring. This is an instant mission. Once the time limit is up, the mission will be automatically canceled. Countdown, 60 seconds. Just as Lin was in a daze, the countdown began. 59, 58, mission success. Reward of 30 vital stones. That's 300,000 spirit stones. How could Lin miss out on such a good opportunity? However, he didn't know anything about the 4 cultivators mentioned by the system. There was only one way to solve this mission, and Lin grabbed Xin Yuancheng's arm and asked anxiously, Big Brother Cheng, Tang Xuan, Zhang Yin, Lu Run, and Kuang Ri, who do you think has the highest chance of becoming the champion? Huh? How does classmate and Lin know the names of our sect's disciples? Xin Yuancheng was surprised. Ah, Big Brother Cheng, this isn't the time to talk about this. Hurry up and tell me which cultivator is the strongest. Time is of the essence. And Lin was extremely anxious. There are only a dozen or so seconds left. They're all the most outstanding cultivators of the younger generation of the 10,000 Spirits Immortal sect. All of them are of the spirit-nurturing initial stage. I think Tang Xiuan has a high chance of winning her White Cloud sword technique. Xin Yuancheng analyzed with a serious expression. Ah, Tang Xiuan? With only 3 seconds left, and Lin immediately chose Tang Xiuan from the system. Ding dong, mission successfully accepted. Host guesses that Tang Xiuan will be the final winner of the tournament. And Lin breathed a sigh of relief after successfully accepting the mission. Xin Yuancheng was still analyzing the situation with a serious expression. She can be said to be the most aggressive out of the 4 of them. Although Tang Xiuan has a high chance of winning, I think Kuang Ri has the highest chance of winning. Why? That's because... And Lin. Chapter 157. In summary, I think the champion of this competition is Kuang Ri. Xin Yuancheng said with a serious expression. Tears welled up in Lin's eyes as his heart throbbed with pain. My God, my 100,000 spirit stones. Can you blame Brother Cheng? And Lin really couldn't blame him after seeing him analyze the situation with such a serious expression. At this moment, the semifinals began. The first match was Zhang Yin against Tang Xiuan. The second match was Lu Run against Kuang Ri. Tang Xiuan's white robe, coupled with her beautiful features, made her appear as natural and elegant as a lotus flower emerging from the water. She held a misty sword in her hand, which was faintly discernible, like a dream or an illusion. She was most likely the idol of many male disciples in the 10,000 Spirits Immortal sect, as her entrance drew thunderous cheers from countless male disciples. In comparison, the appearance of the big guy, Zhang Yin, was much more mundane. They were both prodigies of the 10,000 Spirits Immortal sect, so why was there such a huge disparity between them? And Lin stroked his chin and soon found the answer. The cultivation world was also a world where appearances mattered a lot. If Zhang Yan's face was replaced by Xin Yuancheng's, the cheers would definitely be no less than Tang Xiuan's. Go Tang Xiuan! And Lin also yelled. Xin Yuancheng was given a fright by Lin's sudden yell and looked at him with a strange expression. And Lin's heart was on the verge of breaking down. This was the only thing he could do for Tang Xiwan. 100,000 spirit stones. This was not a small amount. It was enough to buy a low-rank immortal pill. It would be very painful to lose it all. The battle between Tang Xiwan and Zhang Yin finally erupted. The battle had reached its climax as soon as it began. Tang Xiwan's white cloud sword technique was extremely exquisite, and her ever-changing sword technique was very difficult to defend against. Zhang Yan's entire body was crimson red as red flames enveloped his body, making him look like an ancient fiend god. Each of his attacks was imbued with immense power. Their clash sent shockwaves rippling through the entire venue. Tang Xiwan's cloud sword struck Zhang Yan's fist, but was only able to inflict an extremely small wound. However, the immense power imbued within Zhang Yan's fist was enough to send her flying. And Lin watched nervously and cheered loudly. Xin Yuancheng noticed that Lin seemed to be quite interested in Tang Xiwan, so he asked with a smile, "Do you want me to introduce you two to each other after her match?" And Lin paused for a moment before realizing that big brother, Cheng, seemed to have misunderstood something. He quickly waved his hand and said, "Big brother Cheng, don't be like that. Dabai is enough for me." Beside him, Dabai's body shook, and he silently walked a few steps away. Xin Yuancheng also looked at Lin in surprise, as if he was getting to know this man all over again. Lin, this is a joke. Just as they were speaking, Tang Xiwan and Zhang Yan's battle had reached its final moments. Red Lotus Flame Hounds. Zhang Yan roared as he unleashed a dozen or so red flame hounds from his fists, which pounced toward Tang Xiwan. Exquisite Cloud Dance. Tang Xiwan's cherry lips parted slightly as mist began to rise from her cloud sword, enshrouding her in a layer of mist as well. Whoosh! She sprang into action at an extremely fast speed. Boom, boom, boom. The red flame hounds pounced toward her, but they were all evaded by her nimble footwork. A violent explosion erupted beside her. The outcome has been decided. Xin Yuancheng smiled lightly. Her misty body evaded all of Zhang Yan's attacks and instantly appeared beside him. The white cloud sword flashed past, leaving a massive gash in his throat. Rip! Blood splattered through the air as Zhang Yan stumbled back in retreat. However, the white mist flashed again, and Tang Xiwan's sword was once again pressed against Zhang Yan's neck. What a beautiful move! Even Lin couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. As expected of one of the four super sects, the 10,000 Spirits immortal sect's young prodigies were truly outstanding. Tang Xiwan wins. The elder in charge of refereeing announced. Cheers erupted once again as soon as the announcement was announced. And Lin also began to cheer. Tang Xiwan's victory gave him a glimmer of hope. The second battle was between Lu Ren and Kuang Ri. Lu Ren was a handsome and elegant man with a scholarly air. His looks were similar to Lin's, and he could be considered a handsome man. Kuang Ri had a lazy expression on his face, and he scratched his face as soon as he saw Lu Ren. His eyes widened, but at the same time, he was also filled with an indescribable battle intent. Hence, Lu Ren's entrance was undoubtedly met with cheers from all the female disciples present. As for Kuang Ri, there were quite a few disciples on the same mountain who were cheering for him. Lu Ren used a sword, and his sword was imbued with the intent realm of Tai Chi. He was also able to materialize a white barrier of air similar to Xin Yuancheng's. Unfortunately, his cultivation base wasn't high enough, and he hadn't mastered the Tao of myriad spirit Tai Chi yet, so this barrier of air was of limited use. On the contrary, Kuang Ri used a saber, and his attacks were unparalleled. His saber intent was extremely terrifying, and the more he fought, the more ferocious he became, and his aura continued to climb. Hence, the battle quickly turned into a situation where Kuang Ri kept on attacking, while Lu Ren kept on getting beaten. In the end, Lu Ren lay on the ground with his hands raised in surrender after being slashed a few times. Kuang Ri sheathed his saber with a disdainful expression, as if he hadn't had his fill yet. Hence, the crowd was once again enraged, especially the female disciples. Kuang Ri, How could you be so cruel? Wah, my big brother Lu Run, Kwang Ri, you're a freak. So what if Kwang Ri won? Lu Yun is still my second Prince Charming. Xiao Qing, you sure know how to talk today. I didn't chase after you for so many years in vain. Am I your first Prince Charming? No, my first Prince Charming is Xian Yuan Cheng. A male disciple's heart was broken. Facing the noise, Kwang Ri picked his ears and walked down the stage with a lazy expression. Lin fell into deep thought after watching the match. Kwang Ri had won this match with ease. Perhaps he still had trump cards that he hadn't used yet. On the other hand, Tang Xuan's exquisite Dance of Clouds was her final trump card. Could she really beat Kwang Ri with a trump card like that? It had to be said, it really was a close call. Combined with Xian Yuan Cheng's analysis, and Lin became nervous again. He had to do something. He couldn't just sit here and wait for death. There was still some time before the finals. What could he do during this period of time? Got it. And Lin's eyes lit up. He asked, Big Brother Cheng, what's the reward for the winner of this inter-sect competition? Xian Yuan Cheng didn't think too much about it and replied, the top 16 will be rewarded with spirit stones, and the top 4 will receive an elementary rank spirit tool from the sect. And Lin smiled. So you're saying that the winner of this inter-sect competition will receive an elementary rank spirit tool and spirit stones as a reward? How many spirit stones will there be? Xian Yuan Cheng, of the top 4 disciples, the first place will receive 30,000 spirit stones, the second place will receive 20,000 spirit stones, and the other 2 will receive 10,000 spirit stones. Haha, I see. Then I'll go and cheer for Kwang Ri. And Lin waved his hand and left. Xian Yuan Cheng looked at Lin's departing figure and murmured to himself, Lin, your taste is quite unique. Chapter 158. In the resting area, Kwang Ri swallowed an energy-replenishing pill and crossed his legs as he slowly adjusted his condition. All the disciples were gathered around him and chatting excitedly. Brother Kwang Ri, your saber technique was so cool. A male disciple immediately spoke up. Yeah, you made Lu Run of Earth Spirit Peak look like a coward. Another male disciple chimed in. TCH, some of the female disciples immediately walked away upon hearing their idol being slandered. Brother Kwang Ri, it looks like you're going to become the champion this time. Our Heavenly Dawn Peak is going to hold our heads up high this time. A disciple looked at Kwang Ri with admiration and excitement. Kwang Ri sat on a chair with a nonchalant expression and occasionally tilted his neck to pick out his earwax. At this moment, a handsome male walked over. Hello, Mr. Kwang Ri, I'm Lin. Kwang Ri's eyes were bloodshot as he chuckled. I've noticed you since a long time ago, young Master Xuanyuan's friend, dog-riding warrior. And Lin's lips twitched. Dog-riding warrior? What the hell? Forget it. This wasn't the time to bicker about this. He had more important business to attend to. He forced a smile onto his face. I have some things I need to talk to you about in private. Kwang Ri maintained his lazy expression, but he used secret voice transmission. What is it? Lin also transmitted his voice to Lin. Can you go easy on her and let Tang Xuan win the match? I'll give you 40,000 spirit stones. Lin did some calculations. If Kwang Ri only got second place, then he would also get an elementary rank spirit tool and 20,000 spirit stones. Adding on the 40,000 spirit stones he was giving, he had a total of 60,000 spirit stones, which was double the 30,000 spirit stones for first place. Kwang Ri's body trembled as his eyes widened. Are you kidding me? Do you think I'm the kind of person who can be bribed with money? Forget it. Lin, 80,000 spirit stones. Kwang Ri's body trembled violently. I want the glory of first place in the sect competition. I'm fighting for my honor, not for money. Lin, 100,000 spirit stones. I can't go any higher than that. Forget it. Kwang Ri's body calmed down, and he said lazily, deal. Just like that. Lin and Kwang Ri found a place to conduct a secret PY transaction. Kwang Ri's expression changed when he saw the 10 primal stones, but he soon smiled and nodded to Lin. Act more realistically. Don't let others notice any flaws. Don't worry, my acting is flawless. Lin returned to Xian Yuan Cheng's side. He breathed a sigh of relief, and a faint smile appeared on his face. Yes, there was nothing in this world that spirit stones could not solve. If there is, then it's definitely because you don't have enough spirit stones. After a period of time, the highly anticipated final battle finally arrived. Tang Xuan's white dress fluttered in the wind as she stood gracefully on the arena. Kuang Ri unsheathed his large saber, and his whole body erupted with an extremely astonishing aura. Boom! The cloud sword and the broadsword collided, and the sound of the explosion was like thunder. The battle had completely erupted. Profound cloud sword! Tang Xuan yelled softly as her body drifted erratically like a cloud. Charging toward Kuang Ri's long saber slashed out one powerful red saber projection after another. This was his signature saber technique, frenzied saber of 18 waves. Each wave was stronger than the last. His aura continued to accumulate as the saber projection grew stronger and stronger. Even Tang Xuan didn't dare to face it head-on and could only rely on her movement techniques to evade. Use your exquisite cloud dance, or else you won't be able to defeat me. Kuang Ri's eyes were wide open, making him look both freakish and terrifying. He had already planned out the scenario. As soon as Tang Xuan used her exquisite cloud dance, he would pretend to be defeated. Tang Xuan's exquisite cloud dance was extremely powerful. Even he wouldn't be able to withstand it. This way, he wouldn't lose face even if he lost, and it would make the battle even more realistic, killing two birds with one stone. Kuang Ri's frenzied saber of 18 waves reached its final stage. An extremely dazzling crimson saber projection appeared between heaven and earth, tearing the earth apart and sweeping up gale force winds. In the face of this extremely powerful saber strike, Tang Xuan didn't choose to evade. Instead, she swung her sword to meet it, unleashing a white sword projection. Boom! The saber projection and the sword projection collided as red and white shockwaves intertwined, tearing the entire battlefield apart. A white figure flew back with blood gushing from her mouth. Her beautiful face became extremely pale, and her cloud sword also flew out of her hand before falling to the ground with a clang. Tang Xuan fell to the ground and clutched her chest with a pained expression. I can see. The crisp sound reverberated throughout the entire arena, traveling into everyone's ears. Kuang Ri's expression froze, and his bloodshot eyes widened even further. Wait, what was going on? She won just like that? Tang Xuan wasn't this weak, was she? How could she lose without even being able to withstand the frenzied saber of 18 waves? This didn't make sense. The final match of the SEC tournament. The winner is Kuang Ri. An elder responsible for judging the match announced in a loud voice. Cheers erupted from the arena, especially from Kuang Ri's Heavenly Dawn Peak disciples, who were yelling Kuang Ri's name at the top of their lungs. Some of the male disciples who liked Tang Xuan were a little displeased that Kuang Ri was bullying her like this, but they didn't dare to say anything in the face of Kuang Ri's power. The only person who had a similar expression as Kuang Ri was Lin. He stared at the collapsed Tang Xuan with his mouth wide open, completely unable to come to his senses. Ding dong. Host has failed the special mission. 10 vital stones will now be deducted. The system notification sounded. There were 90 vital stones in the storage ring, and 10 of them instantly began to slowly dissipate, and Lin finally realized the reality of the situation. He had lost. On the ground, Tang Xuan wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth as her eyes met Elder Sun's. Both of them averted their gazes in unison. Elder Sun of the Heavenly Dawn Peak had given Tang Xuan 20,000 spirit stones and told her not to try too hard in the final match. Everyone understood what he meant. Tang Xuan's chances of winning against Kuang Ri were less than 20%. But now that Elder Sun had given her 20,000 spirit stones, in addition to the 20,000 spirit stones from the second-place winner, she had a total of 40,000 spirit stones. In that case, her total spirit stones would be 10,000 more than the first-place winner would receive. Only an idiot would refuse such a generous offer. Fight for the glory of first place? That was impossible. She was the sect leader's personal disciple anyway. What could glory do? A smile appeared on Tang Shiyuan's face. With 40,000 spirit stones in hand, she would be able to purchase an elementary rank defensive spirit tool in addition to the 30,000 or so spirit stones she had in her possession. She would be able to purchase an elementary rank defensive spirit tool, as well as an elementary rank combat spirit tool, as a reward for second place. This set couldn't be any more perfect. Elder Son of the Heavenly Dawn Peak also smiled. There was nothing in this world that couldn't be solved with spirit stones. If there was, then it must be because you didn't have enough spirit stones. If Enlin knew what Elder Son was thinking, he would definitely vomit blood from anger. After all, he was the one who had offered the most spirit stones. Chapter 159. Tang Shiyuan had lost, and the glory of first place belonged to Kuang Ri. Enlin was in a daze. Xin Yuan Cheng patted him on the shoulder and said softly, "You said you didn't care about Tang Shiyuan. Look at your expression now. Never mind. I'll introduce her to you later." Enlin's lips twitched. Care about her, my ****. All I cared about was those 100,000 spirit stones. Wait, I gave Kuang Ri 10 spirit stones. Holy ****, what a huge loss. No, I have to get those spirit stones back. Just like that, Enlin found Kuang Ri. Enlin, give me back my money. Kuang Ri, no. Enlin was shocked. You failed the mission. How do you still have the face to ask for the spirit stones? Kuang Ri's expression was lazy. I've been very cooperative, and I don't think Tang Shiyuan would be defeated that easily. There must be some kind of trick involved. Enlin, I don't care if it's a trick or not. It's a fact that you won the competition. No one can change that. Kuang Ri, but I tried my best. You didn't say I had to pay back the spirit stones if I failed the mission. Besides, I was going to earn 120,000 spirit stones, and now I have to pay you back 10 vital stones. That's 90,000 spirit stones. I'll be so heartbroken that I want to kill myself. Enlin was immediately enraged upon hearing this. 90,000 spirit stones, my King Bullsh *T. Do you know how many spirit stones I've lost? Kuang Ri's eyes widened. How many? Enlin's breathing accelerated. If you lost the competition, I would have earned 300,000 spirit stones. Even though I gave you 100,000 spirit stones, I still made 200,000. But you won the competition, so I lost 100,000 spirit stones, and you didn't pay me back. So that means I've lost 400,000 spirit stones. Kuang Ri clawed at his face with bloodshot eyes, and his body trembled. Brother, that's a bit too much. If I were you, I would have killed myself a long time ago. Enlin clutched his chest. Damn it, now that he said that. He really couldn't take it anymore. Kuang Ri, seeing how pitiful you are, I'll return you 5 source stones. Enlin, give it all back to me. Kuang Ri, that's not a problem. Then I'll tell young Master Xin Yuan about you bribing me. Enlin's eyes darkened. ****. That was all. Enlin returned to Xin Yuan Cheng's side with tears streaming down his face as he stroked his storage ring with a pained expression. He had lost 150,000 spirit stones. No, it was 350,000. Seeing Enlin's expression, Xin Yuan Cheng smiled warmly. Enlin, guess what surprise I prepared for you? Enlin took a deep breath and asked in confusion, what surprise? At this moment, a lithe and graceful woman walked out from behind Xin Yuan Cheng. Her face was still a little pale, but made her appear even more adorable. Mr. Enlin, I heard you want to get to know me? The woman in white waved at Enlin with a smile. This woman was the runner-up of the sect competition, Tang Shiyuan. Get to know me? Get to know you, the woman who lost for no reason and made me lose 350,000 spirit stones. Enlin felt like he had been dealt another heavy blow. His chest tightened, and he was short of breath. He still hadn't fully recovered from the after effects of using the origin energy of the netherworld. His vision darkened as he fainted. Xin Yuan Cheng, Tang Shen, Dabai, and a certain monkey. Mr. Enlin's Dao heart is still not stable enough. It's just a meeting with the woman you love. Why are you so excited? Xin Yuan Cheng shook his head and sighed with resignation. Tang Xuan's cherry lips parted slightly as a faint blush appeared on her face. She didn't think that Enlin would care about her so much. She understood his feelings. After what seemed like an eternity in the darkness, Enlin slowly regained consciousness and was greeted by the sight of Dabai's adorable and mighty face. "How long was I out for?" He rubbed his eyes and asked. "Only 2 hours, woof." Dabai scratched his head and continued. "Big brother, and this isn't like you. You just saw a beautiful female cultivator. Why did you faint? Was it true love?" "True love? True love, my 8 guess. No, I really love you, Qinghua." Enlin's heart, which had finally calmed down, began to ache again. "Dabai, don't bring this up. We're still good friends." Dabai heard Enlin's words and continued. "No, Xin Yuan Cheng told me before he left to take you to meet her when you wake up." Enlin glared at him. "Why do I have to meet her?" Dabai smiled wickedly. "Aren't you interested in her? At least, that's what Xin Yuan Cheng thinks, and so does Tang Xuan." Enlin clutched his chest. I can't take it anymore. His heart was aching again. Within a bamboo forest on Rainbow Cloud Peak, Tang Xuan was brewing tea. Her hands were gentle and nimble, and her movements were smooth and smooth. It was a very pleasing sight to behold. Enlin sat in a chair in front of her, looking a little restless. Seeing this, Tang Xuan couldn't help but smile faintly. Who would have thought that Mr. Enlin was such a shy and innocent little boy? Actually, Enlin was feeling restless because he was thinking about how to explain to Tang Xuan that he wasn't interested in her at all. He couldn't be too direct. That would hurt her feelings. So the problem was, how could he explain this tactfully? "Tang Xuan, Enlin, do you like tea?" Enlin shook his head and said solemnly, "No." He knew how to get out of this situation. He would use the fact that they weren't interested in each other. If they didn't have any common interests and didn't get along well with each other and kept up the awkward conversation, then Tang Xuan wouldn't be interested in him, and he would be able to escape unscathed. Brilliant! Just as Enlin was feeling smug about his brilliant idea, Tang Xuan's eyes flashed upon hearing this. Enlin was so honest. He didn't fawn over the tea she brewed and was very straightforward. What a real person. Tang Xuan wasn't angry at all. Instead, asked curiously, "Then Enlin, what are your hobbies?" Enlin continued with a straight face, "I ride a dog." You'll definitely be shocked by such a weird hobby, and then you won't be interested in me anymore, right?" Tang Xuan was dazed upon hearing this, but she quickly came back to her senses and said with a smile, "Is it that cute white dog? Looks like Enlin really likes animals. I've heard that boys who like animals are very gentle. Enlin must be like that too, right?" Seeing Tang Xuan become more and more cheerful as they chatted, Enlin's lips twitched, wondering how she could keep chatting like this without getting angry. What happened to the awkward conversation? Was there something wrong with the way they were chatting? Chapter 160. That's right. I really like animals. I even have an adorable monkey. Enlin looked up at the top of the bamboo and yelled, "Xiao Chou, come down." The bamboo rustled and a little monkey descended from the sky, jumping onto Enlin's shoulder. It had bulb-like eyes, an upturned nose, a crooked mouth, and all sorts of freckles. It looked both ugly and adorable at the same time. The clown cracked an ugly grin at Tang Xuan, then picked his nose. "Well done, Xiao Chou." Enlin sent his voice over and praised. "Did you see my unique fetish and weird sense of beauty? Are you scared yet?" Seeing Tang Xuan's widened eyes, Enlin felt like his plan was on the verge of success. In this cultivation world where looks are everything, Mr. Enlin is able to happily interact with such an ugly little monkey. What a rare sight. Tang Xuan came to her senses. Her eyes sparkled with excitement. She stared at Enlin, her delicate face blushing slightly as she whispered, "I thought you were just envious of my appearance, but it turns out you're not a person who looks at appearances. Then what do you see in me?" Enlin was dumbfounded. What the hell was with this atmosphere of intense affection? How could his bad taste be interpreted like this? "What do I see in you? Can I say that I don't see anything in you?" "No, she'll beat me to death if I say that." Enlin shook his head with a smile. "I don't know, maybe it's just a momentary feeling this kind of feeling might fade away very quickly. That's right, that's the rhythm. You should understand what I'm saying. I just have an inexplicable feeling towards you. I'm not really interested. Hearing this, Tang Xuan lowered her head. Her beautiful eyelashes trembled slightly. She took a sip of tea and didn't say anything. No one knew what she was thinking. Just as Lin thought he was about to succeed, the woman in front of him spoke again. Some kind of feeling in a split second? That's a really good phrase. Sometimes feelings are like this. You don't know when it started, and you don't know when it will end. I didn't expect that fellow Taoist and Lin and I would be so similar in this regard. And Lin was stunned once again. What the hell was going on? Were they really on the same channel? What was with that admiring look in her eyes? Mr. and Lin, my master and master's wife, have been Tao companions for a whole 600 years. But in the end, they still separated. Do you know why? Tang Xuan continued. Why? Is there someone two-timing? And Lin's interest was piqued. Tang Xuan shook her head. No, it's because Master's wife fell sick one day, and she used a voice transmission talisman to inform Master, who is thousands of miles away. Master told her to drink more hot water. Then, the two of them separated. Pooh! And Lin spat out a mouthful of tea. Mistress said that Master's heart has changed. If it was in the past, he would have anxiously rushed back to see her and accompany her. But now, he just told her to drink more hot water. There's no love left. That's the power of time. Mortals always say that 100 years of love will be a happy couple. But for us cultivators, our Tao companions spend far more than 100 years together. Love may be true in the beginning, but as time passes, love will slowly change. Tang Xuan raised her head and looked up at the sky with a melancholy expression. Just like the clouds in the sky, they once existed, but time will make them disappear. Just like you said, no one can guarantee how long this kind of love will last. Perhaps it will fade away at some point. And Lin's lips twitched. Why did you bring him up again? So his made-up words were so philosophical? This woman's mind was very expansive. She was the self-explanatory type, and she was also a chatterbox. Mr. Lin, you feel like you're different from others. You're straightforward, honest, and compassionate. You're also very similar to me when it comes to relationships. Tang Xuan's eyes lit up as she spoke. The thick-skinned Lin was blushing from her praise. So, he had so many good qualities? So, Mr. Lin, I'll allow it. Tang Xuan played with a few strands of her hair as she averted her eyes. Her tone also softened. And Lin blinked. Tang Xuan glared at the confused Lin. What I'm saying is, I'm allowing you to pursue me. And Lin was dumbstruck. Holy F***, this situation is getting out of hand. What do I do? Ahem, Mr. Tang Xuan, the path of cultivation is a long one. Why don't we start off as friends? If we really are like-minded, then I'll pursue you. And Lin was really scared out of his wits. He had no choice but to make this clear. To his surprise, Tang Xuan didn't get angry. Instead, she smiled sweetly like a beautiful cloud. Actually, your introverted and immature nature is also one of the reasons why I'm interested in you. Well, do as you say. And Lin finally breathed a sigh of relief. It looked like he had passed this hurdle. Just like that, the two of them chatted for a while as friends. The atmosphere was quite harmonious. I still have to go to the forest of 10,000 soldier to collect my rewards from the sect competition. Tang Xuan suddenly thought of something and excitedly said, I'm going to pick up an elementary rank spirit tool and an elementary rank protective spirit tool this time. Huh, isn't the sect's reward an elementary rank spirit tool and some spirit stones? And Lin asked curiously. Tang Xuan nodded. That's right, but I have over 30,000 spirit stones. Combined with the 40,000 spirit stones I earned from the sect competition, it's enough to exchange for a decent elementary rank protective spirit tool. And Lin blinked. You earned 40,000 spirit stones? Wasn't it 20,000 spirit stones? Tang Xuan covered her mouth. She knew she had let the cat out of the bag, and a blush appeared on her face. And Lin stared at Tang Xuan in bewilderment. Tang Xuan hesitated for a moment before saying, I see that you're being honest, so I'll tell you a little secret. Actually, my battle with Kwang Ri wasn't as weak as you thought it was. It's just that someone gave me 20,000 spirit stones. I didn't have much of a chance of winning anyway. So, 20,000 spirit stones. Didn't Lin understand this trick? He knew it too well. So much so that he wanted to cry. And Lin was instantly thunderstruck. His lips trembled, and he didn't know what to say. Should he say, "Why did you have to be bribed by a mere 20,000 spirit stones?" Or should he say, "Why the F***CK did my 100,000 spirit stones lose to 20,000 spirit stones?" For some reason, he recalled a sentence from Earth Immortal Ming Yuan. "This is fate." And Lin and Tang Shiyuan parted ways. He returned to his resting place and started to think about life. Tang Shiyuan earned 20,000 spirit stones. Kwang Ri earned 50,000 spirit stones, and he lost 350,000 spirit stones. He suddenly wanted to cry. Chapter 161. Just as Lin was contemplating life, Xin Yuan Cheng arrived again. "Classmate Lin, I just saw Tang Shiyuan. I can tell from her expression that the two of you had a very pleasant conversation. Tell me about your progress." Xin Yuan Cheng looked at Lin with a gentle gaze, but he couldn't hide the curiosity on his face. And Lin's chest tightened again upon hearing this. A pleasant conversation? She's having a pleasant conversation, but I'm so King pissed off. It's all right. We're just normal friends. And Lin forced a smile onto his face. Xin Yuan Cheng patted Lin on the shoulder with encouragement in his eyes. "Go, classmate Lin. You'll find your own happiness." And Lin nodded. He felt like Xin Yuan Cheng was a little too concerned about his relationship issues. However, he didn't think too much about it. After all, his relationship with Tang Shiyuan had come to an end, so it was time for him to go somewhere else and relax. Where should I go? And Lin thought of the 1,000-foot waterfall on the heavenly dawn peak. The scenery there was quite special, so it should be quite fun. Thus, he flew toward the heavenly dawn peak on his brick. Dabai and Xiaoqiu? Dabai was sleeping. Xiaoqiu had probably climbed up a tree to meditate. After all, attaining a domain wasn't a simple task. The heavenly dawn peak had the best scenery among the 5 main peaks. From the foot of the mountain to the peak, one would be able to see many wondrous sceneries. That was exactly what Lin did. He flew to the foot of the mountain on his brick and began his ascent. Along the way, he was surrounded by lush trees, birds chirping, and a light breeze caressed his face. On the other side of the mountain, the sound of the waterfall could be heard, forming a unique melody, giving off a feeling of being far away. He hummed a tune as he climbed up the mountain. When he was in a bad mood, he should do more outdoor exercise like this. Only then would he be able to release the pent-up frustration in his heart. This kind of aimless wandering allowed Lin to successfully walk out of the shadow of the spirit stones, and his mood was much better. Just as Lin was happily enjoying the scenery on the road, he found an interesting young man on top of a tree. This man wore a white robe and had a head of dazzling silver hair. His skin was as white as snow, and he exhaled waves of cold air from his mouth. He just lay on the treetop, his palms flat. Blue light flickered in his palms, transforming into all kinds of interesting ice sculptures. First, he turned into an eagle, then into a kitten, and finally into a dolphin. He changed into all kinds of forms, and it looked quite interesting. Finally, a small blue ice flower that emitted waves of cold air appeared in his palm. He and Lin looked at each other, and then the blue ice flower slowly floated towards Lin. And Lin's expression faltered slightly, but he still accepted the flower. "Are you giving it to me?" he asked hesitantly. The silver-haired man nodded. This was the first time that a man had given a flower to Lin, and he felt extremely conflicted. However, he still replied politely, "Thank you." The silver-haired man smiled faintly and said in a cold voice, "You're welcome. It'll melt in a few seconds anyway." "Huh?" And Lin blinked. Whoosh! The blue flower suddenly melted and turned into a puddle of cold water, wetting Lin's hand and even his pants. Lin, was this a prank? It had to be a prank. Did he want to fight it out? The silver-haired man's expression didn't change when he saw Lin's expression. He continued to create different ice sculptures in his palms and played with them. And Lin's lips twitched, but he couldn't say anything. He didn't want to go outside and relax, only to get into trouble with others again. Thus, he shrugged and continued walking along the mountain path. After a while, he arrived at a spacious flat area. There were many sect disciples training here, and it was quite a lively scene. He also saw Kwang meditating beside a stream, as if he were a quiet and beautiful young man. He was a little surprised. He didn't think that Kwang would have such a calm and peaceful side to him. For some reason, a phrase popped up in Lin's mind. As quiet as a virgin, as agile as a rabbit. He shook his head and didn't look anymore as he continued toward the summit of the Heavenly Dawn Peak. At the summit of the Heavenly Dawn Peak, there was an ice frost demon ceiling tower. Its entire body was snow white and translucent, and it was extremely dazzling and holy under the light of the sun. From time to time, rainbow-colored light would flash through the tower, making it appear very beautiful. Lin had seen it from afar, and he had also been stunned by it. Now that he had reached the summit, he could take a good look at it. After walking for a long time, the sun also began to slowly set below the horizon. The sky began to turn a little dim, and multicolored light appeared in the sky, creating an extremely dazzling sight. Many multicolored clouds floated in the sky. Their shapes were ever-changing as they surged non-stop. The colors of the clouds were also constantly changing. One moment, they were like lily-colored balls of cotton. The next moment, they were like golden waves, and after a while, they were like a beautiful celestial maiden in a fiery red dress dancing in the sky. How interesting. How can the color of the sunset be so gorgeous? And Lin stopped in his tracks and clicked his tongue in wonder as he looked up at the clouds in the sky. However, the clouds soon began to converge, turning from a golden color to a red color before finally becoming a dark red color. Is it going to rain? And Lin's brows furrowed as he turned away from the clouds in the sky and made his way toward the summit again. Halfway up the mountain, the silver-haired young man looked up at the converging clouds in the sky. The ice sculpture in his hand had transformed into a small blue flower again, and bursts of frosty air were emanating from it. Is it about to begin? A cold voice sounded from his mouth, and there was not a single trace of emotion in it. The small blue flower in his hand fluttered with the wind, flying over the forest and slowly circling along the cliff. In the distance, a 1,000-foot waterfall fell into the world, surging and roaring, and the light of the setting sun gave it a layer of beautiful colors. A cloud of mist rose into the air, and the small blue flower floated into the waterfall like a speck of dust falling into the ocean. Then everything became still. The waterfall was extremely powerful, and countless water droplets floated in the air before slowly condensing. Kacha, a faint blue light spread in all directions, and it was imbued with an extremely terrifying frosty intent, freezing everything in its wake. Its speed was extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, it had transformed the 1,000-foot waterfall into a frosty silver wall. Under the illumination of the sun, the wall shimmered with silver light. The waterfall had frozen into a white wall of silver, and it exuded a bone-chilling frosty intent. The Heavenly Dawn Peak had become tranquil due to the freezing of the waterfall. It had never been so quiet before, so quiet that it was as if there were no longer any signs of life. And Lin was still making his way toward the summit when he suddenly saw translucent, snow-white willow catkins drifting down from the sky. He stretched out his hand, and he discovered that the beautiful willow catkins melted into his hand, transforming into bursts of frosty intent. It's snowing. Chapter 162. It was snowing at the 10,000 Spirits Immortal Sect. White snowflakes drifted down from the clouds in the sky. The light of the setting sun added a golden hue to the snowflakes. Many young disciples stared at the snowflakes in astonishment. It wasn't the season for it to snow yet, but the weather was changing way too quickly. And Lin was also a little perplexed. The weather had been clear and sunny just a moment ago. Why was it suddenly snowing? Moreover, he felt like something was missing. His surroundings had become extremely quiet. Right at this moment, the dark red clouds in the sky suddenly surged, and an extremely terrifying and oppressive aura descended from above. And Lin's breathing faltered as a sense of asphyxiation assaulted his entire body, as if he were facing a mighty being. This feeling was just like when he was facing the Dark Knight Monarch. What terrifying power! What's going on? And Lin looked up into the sky, just in time to see the clouds slowly split open. An ice bird over 1,000 feet in length pierced through the clouds like a sharp sword, flying toward the summit of the heavenly dawn peak. How dare you, demonic woman! How dare you invade the 10,000 spirits immortal sect? You're seeking death. A thunderous roar exploded. A dozen or so extremely powerful auras erupted from the summit of the heavenly dawn peak as a series of dazzling and powerful immortal spells blasted toward the ice bird. Boom! The powerful attacks tore the ice bird to shreds. However, before everyone could even catch their breath, 9 ice dragons over 1,000 feet in length broke through the clouds, descending upon the world with boundless dragon might. The ice dragons blotted out the sun, and behind them, a series of golden ropes pulled a throne of ice. On the throne sat an exquisitely beautiful woman with her eyes tightly shut, holding a white divine staff in her hand. Behind her, over 100 silver-haired women stood solemnly with weapons in their hands, exuding powerful auras. And Lin's legs began to tremble at the sight of this. Could this be a group attack on the 10,000 spirits immortal sect? In any case, this was clearly not a battle he could participate in. He immediately began to think of a way to escape. Right at this moment, powerful cultivators from the other main peaks also arrived on their swords. It looked like a battle was about to break out. Among these cultivators, there were a few with extremely terrifying auras. They were the peak leaders of the 5 main peaks, all of whom were returned to Void Stage mighty figures. On the Heavenly Harmony peak, an elderly man with white hair and beard opened his murky eyes and stepped through the air, leaving a large cloud of mist behind him. On the Earth Spirit peak, a middle-aged man with dark skin tore open a spatial rift and appeared directly at the summit of the Heavenly Dawn peak. On the Rainbow Cloud peak, which was full of female disciples, there was a beautiful woman in a red robe, standing on a golden flame flying snake that emitted a monstrous red light. Every time she moved, she would cross thousands of feet and arrive at a rapid speed. At the highest peak of the sect, the Firmament Peak, an elegant man in a white robe disappeared. Then his whole body turned into a huge white sword, and the sound of the sword was like a dragon roaring in the 9 heavens. On the Heavenly Dawn peak, an old woman with an ancient aura raised her head and looked up at the frozen throne in the sky. High Priestess Snow God, who would have thought that you would still be eyeing the frosty demon ceiling tower? Do you really think there's no one left in the 10,000 spirits immortal sect? On the throne, the silver-haired woman opened her. Her eyes were pure gold, and a supreme might enveloped heaven and earth, forcing all things to bow down to her. A cold voice sounded. Sect leader Xin Yuanlun is being held back by the Great Empress, and Grand Elder Lord Tianwu is in the final stages of seclusion. Even if the demon ceiling tower is taken, he won't be able to come out. So, your 10,000 spirits immortal sect really has no one left. Insolence! A male roar erupted between heaven and earth. Immediately afterward, a white sword projection imbued with supreme sword might slashed toward the 9 ice dragons. Boom! Sword intent surged, and the entire sky was transformed into a vast expanse of white, lighting up the entire dusk. The peak leader of the Heavenly Dawn Peak had made his move. The roars of the huge dragons erupted from the sky. Countless blades of ice swept through heaven and earth. Even the falling snow in the sky transformed into the most lethal blades and began to attack the disciples of the Heavenly Dawn Peak. Heaven and earth were plunged into a murderous atmosphere. One silver-haired woman after another descended from the sky. All of them were beautiful, and all of them were at the spirit-nurturing stage or soul formation stage. And Lin immediately leaped onto his black brick and fled the Heavenly Dawn Peak upon seeing the battle erupt. Any random silver-haired woman could easily kill him in a battle of this caliber. Just as he leaped onto his black brick, he discovered that the silver-haired man he had encountered before was slowly making his way up the mountain path. Seeing as the man had given him flowers, he immediately said, "Brother, the battle up there is way too terrifying. Why are you still walking over there?" If he really did choose to participate in the battle, he would definitely fly up on his sword. If he couldn't even fly on his sword, then what the F***CK was the point of fighting? Even the falling snow in the sky could kill him. The silver-haired man smiled lightly upon seeing Lin. "It's all right. I'm just going to self-detonate and blow up the demon ceiling tower of the 10,000 Spirits Immortal Sect." And Lin's mouth gaped open in shock. An extremely terrifying thought surfaced in his mind. No, this was no longer a thought. This was because the silver-haired man didn't look like he was joking. "Ahem. Big brother, I'll be going now." And Lin's lips twitched as he spoke with an extremely uneasy expression. Just as he was about to rise into the air atop his brick, the silver-haired man's voice sounded from behind him again. "Wait." And Lin's body faltered, and he obediently stopped. He didn't dare to stop. A terrorist who was responsible for such a crucial mission as self-destruction would at least have a few tricks up his sleeve. It was better for him to listen obediently. And Lin's body trembled as he turned to the silver-haired man. "Big brother, is there anything else? Thank you for your concern." The silver-haired man nodded toward Lin with an earnest expression. "Lin, no need to thank me. Actually, isn't it good to be alive? Why do you have to self-detonate?" And Lin felt like this enemy was quite easy to talk to, so he wanted to do what he could. The silver-haired man shook his head. "It's good to be alive, but I'm not really alive." He nodded politely toward Lin before continuing toward the summit of the mountain. And Lin didn't linger any longer and flew away from the heavenly dawn peak atop his brick. The terrifying energy in the sky made him feel like he was about to suffocate. He raised his head and could vaguely make out the high priestess of the snow goddess hovering in the distance. She was extremely powerful, and she was able to hold her own against 3 return to Void Stage peak leaders by herself. The 2 female guardians beside her were also returned to Void Stage mighty figures, and they were able to hold their own against the other 2 peak leaders. The sect protection formation had already been activated, and a golden light enshrouded the entire 10,000 Spirits Immortal Sect, protecting all the disciples within the sect. This kind of golden light could allow the disciples to quickly circulate the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, and also increase their resistance to damage, thereby increasing their combat prowess to a certain extent. The formation spirit was a golden Kirin beast. It was also engaged in an earth-shattering battle with the 9 ice dragons in the sky. And Lin knew that this battle, which appeared to be a stalemate, could very well be overturned by the silver-haired man's self-detonation. But why would an enemy like him listen to such crucial information that could decide the outcome of this battle? And Lin shook his head. Regardless of whether there was a conspiracy or not, he still decided to tell Xianyuan Cheng about this first before it was too late. With this in mind, he immediately picked up his voice transmission talisman and contacted Xianyuan Cheng. The voice transmission talisman connected, and the sound of battle could be heard from within. Before Lin could say anything, Xianyuan Cheng's voice sounded. "Hey, Lin, the Snow Maidens are here. You need to leave the 10,000 Spirits Immortal Sect as soon as possible for your own safety." "Big brother Cheng, listen to me first. There's a man with short silver hair who wants to go to the Heavenly Dawn Peak." Boom! A violent explosion erupted from within the voice transmission talisman, and then silence ensued, and Lin grimaced. Does it have to be so melodramatic? He turned to look at the Heavenly Dawn Peak, where countless immortal spells shone brightly, and they were even more beautiful than the sunlight in the sky. However, this was a fatal kind of beauty. Should I go? Thinking back to what Xianyuan Cheng had told him through the voice transmission talisman, and Lin gritted his teeth, and a determined expression appeared in his eyes as he flew toward the Heavenly Dawn Peak atop his brick. Chapter 163. The silver-haired man strode toward the peak of the mountain as his clear eyes gradually turned murky. Even if I speak like this, I can't. In the end, his eyes lost focus, and his face was stupefied. Huh? Why do I have to take one step at a time? With a blank face, he realized that this was a very serious problem. He patted his head and stretched out his palm. A blue light appeared, and a huge ice bird began to condense under his feet. He stepped onto the ice bird and rose into the air. Just like that, the silver-haired man and Enlin ran into each other again. Enlin, it's over. How am I going to explain to him that I've returned? The silver-haired man didn't react to Enlin. His expression was one of indifference. Enlin discovered that this man seemed a little different. He had become a lot colder. The man didn't attack him and didn't even pay him any attention. This made Enlin heave a small sigh of relief. Also, upon closer inspection, the man seemed to have become a little dazed. Enlin immediately came up with another idea. This man was the cause of all this. Should he try to kill him here? Lightning flashed on his fingertips, and his fist was ready to strike. Mountain-quaking fist. A golden fist projection shot forth toward the defenseless silver-haired man. Boom! Powerful energy exploded and shattered the silver-haired man's ice bird. His body was also struck by this punch and fell from the sky. Lightning manipulation technique. Blue lightning fell from the sky and struck the silver-haired man squarely. Enlin stared at the plummeting male with a tense expression on his face. In the next second, the silver-haired man's palm flashed with blue light as an ice phoenix over 100 feet long materialized in the air and caught his body. He looked at Enlin and scratched his head with a dazed expression. His body was completely unharmed. Enlin, he knew that he couldn't defeat this man at all when he saw this scene. He immediately used all of his abilities to fly up on his brick. There was only one way left, and that was to inform the elders of the Myriad Spirits sect as soon as possible. The silver-haired man came back to his senses. Oh, so it's an enemy. Attack. He soared in the sky atop the ice phoenix, and blue light flashed in his hand as a black ice spear appeared in the air. The black ice spear's energy was so immense that even the space around it began to tremble. The spear's tip was pitch black and deep, as if it could pierce through anything. He looked at Enlin, who was high up in the sky, and threw the black spear out. The black spear left a pitch-black crack in the air. Like a bolt of lightning, it arrived in front of him in the blink of an eye. With boundless might, it stabbed toward Enlin. Everything happened too quickly. With Enlin's strength, he simply couldn't react at all. He could only watch helplessly as the black spear pierced through his primal chaos alloy brick. Yes, from a silver-haired man's angle, the black spear would only be able to hit the black brick. Rumble. Terrifying energy erupted from beneath the black brick with mountain-toppling, sea-draining force. The explosion of energy sent shockwaves rippling outwards, shattering the mountain and sweeping up gale-force winds. Enlin stepped onto the black brick, and he felt a terrifying force pushing him and the black brick upward like a rocket. Even with his sturdy body, he felt as if his bones were falling apart. A second later, Enlin successfully arrived at the summit of the Heavenly Dawn Peak on his rocket. The silver-haired man stared blankly at Enlin in the distance. "Why can't I pierce through it?" he muttered. Enlin also looked down at the silver-haired man, who had already become a tiny black dot in the distance. He wondered if he should thank him. A battle between Return to Void Stage cultivators was taking place in the air. Thus, the summit of the Heavenly Dawn Peak had already become a battlefield reserved for cultivators of the Spirit Nurturing Stage and Soul Formation Stage. The shockwaves from the battle had shaved away layer after layer of the gargantuan mountain. What was once a majestic mountain was now reduced to a pile of rubble and snow. Only the snow-white frosty demon ceiling pagoda remained standing as it was protected by a spell formation. It glowed with a rainbow light. Enlin didn't waste any more time. He immediately rushed toward one of the elders and told him about the silver-haired man's attempt to self-destruct to open the frosty demon ceiling pagoda. The elder looked deeply into Enlin's eyes and immediately communicated this information to all the elders of the Heavenly Dawn Peak through the psychic net. The peak leaders in the air also received this information. However, Their battle was extremely intense, and they couldn't afford to be distracted for even a moment. Thus, they couldn't spare any attention to deal with the silver-haired man. Thus, this heavy responsibility fell onto the shoulders of the elders of the 10,000 Spirits Immortal Sect. Several soul formation stage elders released their divine senses and locked onto the man who was flying into the air atop the ice phoenix. This was all Lin could do. This terrifying battlefield really wasn't a place he could stay. He immediately wanted to leave this place. The snowflakes dancing in the air transformed into ice blades that slashed at his skin. Thankfully, he had cultivated the Earth Lotus Supreme skill, and his skin was extremely thick, so he was able to evade this attack. However, right at this moment, a frosty tornado suddenly tore through the earth and hurtled toward him. Holy F***CK. I've been targeted. And Lin was greatly alarmed. Rings of wind appeared around his feet as he sidestepped at an extremely high speed, evading the frosty tornado. He then looked forward. It was just the aftermath of the battle. However, after taking a look, he could no longer move his feet. A woman in a blood-stained white robe knelt on the ground, her body trembling slightly. Without the support of any power, the misty and erratic longsword in her hand began to slowly fall silent. This was how the battlefield was. If you didn't pay too much attention to it, you wouldn't think it was all that tragic. However, if you focused your attention here, you would discover that there were already many ice-cold corpses lying on the ground. The blood that flowed from their bodies had been frozen into dark red crystals by the low temperatures, and there were still disciples falling to the ground. Many people had already died in this battle. Death really was very close to him. If he left now, that woman would probably also die here. That woman called Tang Xuan. The silver-haired woman charged toward Tang Xuan with her frosty longsword and slashed out hundreds of blue sword projections. Tang Xuan raised her head. The frosty and sharp sword projections were like stars in the night sky, carrying with them an unstoppable aura. She knew that she wouldn't be able to block this attack, but she still stubbornly raised her head and gripped her cloud sword tightly as she charged toward the Snow Maiden. First technique, Wind Sword. And Lin's body flashed to the silver-haired woman's side. His evil-slaying sword glowed with white light as he slashed out a pure white crescent. The silver-haired woman's pupils contracted as she drew her sword to defend herself. Gotcha! The frosty longsword was sliced in half by the crescent, but it didn't stop there as it began to tear into the woman's body. Blue blood sprayed into the air as a huge gash appeared on her chest. The silver-haired woman's expression changed drastically as she retreated with all her might. However, Tang Xuan's attack had already arrived at this moment. Exquisite Cloud Dance. Her entire body transformed into a cloud and mist that followed her like a shadow. Streaks of white sword projections were as fast as lightning as they tore into the Snow Maiden's body. The Snow Maiden retreated again and again, but Tang Xuan was even faster. Streaks of sword projections fell without any hesitation, causing the Snow Maiden to wail in pain. In the end, a thin white line slit her neck and the battle was completely over. Tang Xuan's body swayed slightly, as if she was a little exhausted. However, her eyes were fixed on Enlin, and there was a look of gratitude on her beautiful face. Enlin couldn't help but save the damsel in distress, but his expression changed drastically as he pounced toward Tang Xuan before he even had a chance to gloat. Chapter 164. Be careful! Enlin yelled as a storage ring flashed, and the black brick flew toward Tang Xuan. Boom! Dark blue flames exploded and scorching energy swept through the surroundings, melting the ground within a radius of 30 feet to form a pitch-black crater. Tang Xuan's eyes widened in shock as the scorching heat wave swept past her. The feeling of impending death was extremely strong. She slowly turned around to find a huge black brick shielding her from the terrifying flames. This was the second time Enlin had saved her. She gritted her teeth and quickly retreated. No matter what, she couldn't become Enlin's burden again. Enlin looked up ahead with a grave expression. There was a gorgeous silver-haired woman walking toward him. She was surrounded by a sea of blue flames, and she held a white spirit bead that exuded a frosty aura in her hand. This is a soul formation stage enemy. I'll hold her off. You find a chance to escape. And Lin said to Tang Xiuan in a panicked voice. He had no choice but to use the origin energy of the netherworld again after being targeted by a soul formation stage mighty figure. Tears welled up in Tang Xiuan's eyes as she thought that Lin was going to die for her. She bit down on her lower lip and said stubbornly, "No, I'm not leaving. If we die together." And Lin, die together? Just where did this girl's mind wander to? He yelled again. Who the F***CK wants to die with you? I'm telling you to run. Then I'll find a chance to escape. Huh? Tang Xiuan blinked her bright eyes. Just as they were speaking, blue flames whistled through the air and surrounded the two of them, sealing off their path of retreat. Damn, even running away was a problem now. And Lin smiled bitterly and was just about to use the origin energy of the netherworld. At this moment, a familiar voice sounded from the sky. 100 sword piercing void. The white-robed man wielded a heavy, edgeless sword and unleashed a mighty sword aura. The phantom of the Tai Chi twin fish appeared behind him as the Tao of Tai Chi of all spirits fused with heaven and earth. Over 100 extremely agile, white, flying swords appeared behind him before flying toward the snow maidens on the ground with peerless sharpness. The dark blue flames within the snow woman's domain detected a terrifying threat, and they immediately changed their target to the hundreds of flying swords in the sky. The fearsome collision of energy didn't take place. The flying sword was slightly warped by the scorching flames, but its penetrative power was extremely powerful. It pierced through the flames and continued onward toward the snow maiden. How is this possible? The snow lady revealed a terrified expression for the first time. This was her first line, and she was enveloped by boundless sword projections as soon as she finished speaking. In the blink of an eye, the 100 flying swords mercilessly tore into the snow maiden's body. An instant kill, and Lin stared blankly at the man in the sky, his face filled with astonishment. It wasn't because his strength was terrifying, but because, and Lin, are you all right? The white-robed man descended from the sky and spoke in a gentle voice. That's right. The man who had insta-killed the soul formation stage snow maiden was Xianyuan Cheng. And Lin shook his head. I'm fine, big brother Cheng. When did you become so badass? What kind of hacks are you using now? Xianyuan Cheng was momentarily dazed. After coming to his senses, he patted the heavy sword in his hand and explained, "This is all thanks to the ancient spirit sword that my father left in the sect. It possesses the power of a sword spirit, and I was only able to borrow its power after activating the power of my bloodline." And Lin was envious upon hearing this. That's so impressive. Even my immortal tool doesn't have this ability. It was understandable that the evil slaying sword didn't have a sword spirit, but his realm-piercing nail did. Why didn't he feel anything special when using the realm-piercing nail? Oh, right. And Lin, thank you for taking the risk to deliver this information. You can leave this place with Tang Xiuan now, Xianyuan Cheng said with a grateful expression. And Lin nodded. He had wanted to leave this place for a long time. So he leaped onto his black brick and left the war-torn Heavenly Dawn Peak. Tang Xiuan was already exhausted and didn't have much battle prowess left, so she didn't object and followed Lin into the sky. Right at this moment, a piercing screech reverberated throughout the entire battlefield. The massive ice phoenix soared into the sky like a sharp blue sword, bringing with it a frosty gust of wind that tore apart the mountain like a sharp blade. The 6 soul formation stage elders who attempted to stop the ice phoenix were all sent flying back, while coughing up blood from their mouths. After breaking through the defensive line, the ice phoenix didn't stop. Instead, it flew toward the frosty demon ceiling tower. And Lin's expression shifted upon seeing this. The man standing on the ice phoenix was none other than the silver-haired man who had threatened to self-detonate. In the air above, a mighty sword intent that was powerful enough to slice through all things instantly slashed down upon the silver-haired man. Even the space around it began to twist and warp. Too late, the silver-haired man said lightly, but his body continued to charge toward the frosty demon ceiling tower. The sword intent sliced the silver-haired man's body and the ice phoenix in half. Even the heavenly dawn peak down below had a massive trench that extended for over 1,000 feet. However, the two halves of his body didn't slow down in the slightest. They continued to fly toward the frosty demon ceiling tower while exuding an extremely dazzling white light. The entire space was instantly transformed into a dazzling golden color. At this moment, it was as if a miniature sun exuding boundless light and heat had appeared on the heavenly dawn peak. Xin Yuan Sheng appeared beside Enlin and Tang Xuan before unleashing a Tai Chi sword formation that encompassed both of them. Boom! Boundless energy imbued with the power to destroy all things swept forth in all directions. Heaven and earth tremored as mountains and rivers crumbled. At the epicenter of the explosion, countless sect disciples and snow maidens were annihilated by the terrifying power. Even those who were battling in the distance were struck by the shock waves of the explosion and fell to the ground with severe injuries. Xin Yuan Sheng unleashed his sword formation to protect Enlin and Tang Xuan, but his sword formation was severely damaged, and he threw up a mouthful of blood from the backlash. Big Brother Cheng. Enlin supported Xin Yuan Cheng's body as his heart began to race with panic. The dust cloud slowly settled. The heavenly dawn peak had been completely destroyed. In the center of the inky black crater, the translucent white frosty demon ceiling tower was no longer glowing with rainbow light. Cracks covered the entire tower like a spiderweb, and an extremely ancient aura began to emanate from within the tower. Some of the elders of the 10,000 Spirits Immortal sect were shocked to see the frosty demon ceiling tower crack open. The snow maidens were initially filled with grief and hatred at the sight of so many of their sisters being killed in the explosion. Then they were stunned by the sight of the frosty demon ceiling tower cracking open, which was then followed by ecstasy. Enlin knew that the big boss was about to come out upon seeing this. His situation was starting to worsen. Boom! The frosty demon ceiling tower completely shattered and transformed into specks of ice, which glowed with rainbow light under the light of the setting sun. Enlin took a deep breath. He was coming out. Chapter 165. The destruction of the frosty demon ceiling tower drew the attention of almost everyone on the battlefield. Almost everyone held their breaths as they stared intently at the figure behind the white mist. Enlin was no exception. He supported the severely wounded Xin Yuan Sheng as he stared nervously at the bottom of the crater, wondering what kind of monster with 3 heads and 6 arms would emerge from it. Soon, the figure appeared in everyone's field of vision. Enlin's mouth gaped open as he stood rooted to the spot, completely dumbfounded. Holy F***CK, why is it still him? The figure that walked out was a handsome male. He looked a little thin and frail, and he bore a 90% resemblance to the male who had self-detonated. Aside from the fact that his hair had changed from silver to black, the two of them were practically identical. Many of the young disciples of the sects were also rooted to the spot, unable to understand why the frosty demon ceiling tower, which had stood in the sect for hundreds of years, would be suppressing an extremely frail-looking human. Only some of the sect's elders had solemn expressions as they stared vigilantly at the handsome man. The male rubbed his slightly blurry eyes as he looked around, completely rooted to the spot. The bodies of the 10,000 spirits, immortal sect disciples, and the bodies of the snow maidens lay silently on the ground. Those who were still alive had all stopped fighting and turned to look at him. Only the earth-shattering golden sect, protecting formation, and the deafening rumbles in the sky indicated that an earth-shattering battle was taking place here. So that's how it is. A bitter smile appeared on the male's face as he came to his senses. He turned his gaze toward the battlefield with a look of pity in his eyes. To think that the heavenly dawn peak would end up like this, an elder of the 10,000 spirits immortal sect stood out and yelled, "Are you Chen Xinghang or Bing Fu?" Enlin blinked in confusion. Chen Xinghang, Bing Fu? Isn't this a F***king free point question? This person is clearly a male, so what the hell is Bing Fu? If I had to choose, I would choose Chun Qinghang. However, the male on the battlefield was in a daze as a conflicted expression appeared on his face. His dusty memories were slowly unraveled, and the past gradually surfaced in his mind. His name was Chun Qinghang, and he was a once-in-a-thousand-years prodigy of the 10,000 Spirits immortal sect. She reached spirit nurturing stage at 17, soul formation stage at 21, and reached the soul formation pinnacle stage before turning 100 years old. She was the most talented cultivator in the Kingdom of the Nine States. At that time, he was so high-spirited and peerless. However, during a battle against the Snow Maiden army, he was forced into a corner by the palace leaders of the three holy palaces. This battle had shattered his physical body, but because of the life-saving equipment, his soul had a chance to escape. However, at the moment of his escape, his divine soul was on the verge of being destroyed by the absolute frost sword. In the end, just as his divine soul was about to dissipate, it fell into the lotus pond. Yes, just as you thought, he transformed the lotus root into a physical body and was reborn. Hey, wake up! A crisp sound rang out. The man opened his eyes with great difficulty and looked around in a daze. Then his vision fixed on the delicate and adorable girl. The man shook his head. He felt a sharp pain in his head and groaned in pain. Hey, tell me the truth. Are you a man or not? The girl placed her hands on her hips and leaned forward. Her silver hair brushed against his face, and a faint fragrance wafted into his nose. Her golden eyes stared curiously into the man's eyes. I'm a man. The man felt a sharp pain in his head. However, there was no mistaking that he was a man. The girl giggled. I knew it. There's a mushroom and 2 eggs between your crotch, so you're definitely a man. The man's expression froze. He looked down at his crotch, and only then did he realize that he wasn't wearing any clothes. His heart jolted with shock, and he hurriedly covered his crotch. You saw everything? The girl nodded. Of course. I did some research on it. Research? The man's body trembled as he gritted his teeth. You? How could you act like a pervert? The girl's brows furrowed slightly. I'm acting like a pervert? If this is considered acting indecently, then why did you suddenly appear naked next to my lotus pond? In that case, it's obviously you who acted indecently first, okay? The man's lips trembled, but he didn't know how to retort. What's your name, man? The girl asked. Name? A blank expression appeared on the man's face. His mind was completely blank. Aside from some instincts and common sense, he couldn't think of anything else. You don't even know your name? The girl wrinkled her adorable little nose as a contemplative expression appeared on her face. How about, I call you Bing Fu? The man's eyes widened. I'm a man. The girl's golden eyes also widened as a vast might erupted from her body. From now on, you're a woman. Your name is Bing Fu, and you're my toy. Mengji, understand? The man could feel the divine might enveloping his entire body. He felt as if he were facing an extremely mighty being, and he instantly wilted. Yes, you're always right. Thus, the girl named Mengji received a toy by the name of Ice Lotus on this day. Mengji was very happy. She had a toy that she couldn't find a second one on the entire continent, a living man. Just the thought of it made her feel good. Bing Fu put on the blue robe that Mengji had given him. Even though Bing Fu's appearance was delicate, the robe still made him appear a little too heroic. In order to make him appear more feminine, Mengji installed a pair of fake breasts for him. Mengji rolled around on the ground with laughter at the sight of Bing Fu's massive chest. She was very pleased with her toy. Bing Fu didn't have much of a problem with this. His past was like a blank piece of paper, and all he had to do now was survive. In order to survive here, he took on another identity, which was as Mengji's personal servant. After some investigation, he learned that the continent he was on was called the Holy Glacial Lands. This was a place where the entire continent was made up of women, which was why Mengji insisted that he become a woman. Here, men could only be ice sculptures. Mengji's identity was not simple. There were 36 holy palaces in the Holy Glacial Lands, and she was the daughter of one of the Holy Palace's palace leaders. She was an extremely revered person, and she also possessed the noble bloodline of the Holy Monarch. Her future was limitless. With Meng Ji's protection, Bing Fu's life was quite enjoyable. He would cultivate the Ice Heart mantra with Meng Ji, eat some spirit herbs, and occasionally go out to hunt. The days passed by one after another. One day, Bing Fu was lying on a huge rock, basking in the sun with contentment. He sighed with emotion. It was so easy to be a toy. Aside from doing some of the daily chores that a servant would do, he lived a life where he stood above all others. He could enjoy delicious food at any time, and he could learn any high-level cultivation method he wanted. It had to be said that he was starting to like this place. This place was completely heaven. At this moment, Meng Ji walked over in her white dress and spoke in a gentle but authoritative voice. "Toy, what are you thinking about?" Bing Fu's eyes narrowed into a smile. "Reporting to Master, I'm thinking about when you'll stop calling me a toy." Meng Ji flared up with rage upon hearing this. "A toy is something that lasts for a lifetime. Even if I break them, that won't change the fact that you're my toy." Bing Fu's lips twitched. Why did that sound so terrifying? Meng Ji wrapped her slender arms around Bing Fu's neck with a smile. "I'm definitely going to become the high priestess of the holy glacial lands in the future. That way, no one will be able to restrict me, and I'll be able to do whatever I want." "Oi, oi, toy. What do you want to do in the future?" Bing Fu smiled as he listened to Meng Ji's words. "I'm already your toy, so what else can I do? Of course, I'm going to stay by your side." Meng Ji lowered her head as a faint blush appeared on her face. "Perfect answer. Come, let's go to the treasure room. Master will reward you with a spirit fruit." Bing Fu chuckled. He was already very familiar with sucking up to Meng Ji, so it didn't take much effort for him to do so. Now another spiritual fruit was in his hands.